Chapter 1105. Yu Feng jumped levels to challenge Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian also jumped levels to challenge Tenlon Hai. The arrogance of these two was clearly etched on their faces. Their calm words were unable to mask the flames of conflict in their hearts. Tenlon Hai stared at Qin Wentian as a faint smile appeared on his face. However, he only saw Tenlon Jiang looking straight ahead as he emotionlessly spoke. Not just anyone has the qualifications to challenge a prince of the Tenlon Heaven Kingdom. Not just anyone has the qualifications to challenge young Master Qin of the immortal Qianbian Gate. An immortal king beside Qin Wentian retorted with no hesitation when he heard Tenlon Jiang's insulting words. In addition, a certain Silk Pants prince of the Tenlon Heaven Kingdom can't even be mentioned in the same breath as young Master Qin. Tenlon Jiang's eyes abruptly turned sharp as he stared in the direction of the immortal Qianbian Gate. At this moment, an expert from the Solar Sky Mountain spoke. Since Yu Feng's cultivation base is inferior, a second-level Immortal Foundation expert should be able to challenge you, right? Tenlon Jiang waved his hand when he heard this. A second-level Immortal Foundation expert walked up the platform to replace Yu Feng. That expert then pointed to Qin Wentian. Come out and fight. Qin Wentian glanced at that person. You are not worthy. Maybe I would be a little interested if a prince of your empire were to fight me. Are you arrogant or do you not dare to accept my challenge? That person stared at Qin Wentian, his tone impudent, as though he wanted to infuriate Qin Wentian, causing Qin Wentian to fight him. Only to see that at this moment, a third-level Immortal Foundation young man walked out from the side of Qin Wentian. This person was from the Battle Saint tribe and had an extremely aged countenance. He glanced in the direction of the Tenlon Heaven Kingdom and spoke to Tenlon Hai. You, come out and fight. What status do you have? Are you even worthy to challenge a prince? The person opposite him coldly spoke. Is he arrogant or does he not dare to accept my challenge? This young man from the Battle Saint tribe returned the words of his opponent back to him. This caused his opponent to narrow his eyes as he coldly laughed. Since this is the case, I shall test your strength with a second-level Immortal Foundation cultivation base. As the sound of his voice faded, his aura erupted forth. The might of his Immortal Foundation swept through the air as a starry sky appeared in the air. An incomparably gigantic stone giant appeared, exuding boundless might. As a bright light flashed, numerous boulders rained down with extreme speed, transforming into streams of light that resembled meteors. Thunderous rumbling sounds rang out from the battle platform as the meteors shot towards the young man from the Battle Saint tribe. The young man from the Battle Saint tribe radiated an immortal light as he donned a battle armor. When the meteors slammed into him, intense sounds of impact could be heard. However, those incomparably gigantic meteors actually had no way to harm him at all. Roar! A thunderous roar rang out. The young man from the Battle Saint tribe grabbed out with his hands as a deafening roar echoed in the air. An incomparably gigantic divine ape appeared in the air, exuding boundless might. With a single punch, the space trembled as all the meteors shattered. The divine ape blasted out with its palm, blasting apart the gigantic stone giant. A scream of misery rang out as the body of the young man was directly flung through the air, slamming into the light screen. His Immortal Foundation was already shattered, he was now a cripple. Boom, boom, boom. Many experts from the Tenlon Heaven Kingdom stood up as their auras erupted forth. Their subordinate was actually crippled by this young man. Everyone, what are you all doing? Changqing Longhao stared in the direction of the banquet of the Tenlon Heaven Kingdom as he calmly spoke. Isn't this man a little too ruthless? An expert from the Tenlon Heaven Kingdom coldly spoke as he stared at the person whose Immortal Foundation was crippled. If I didn't remember wrongly, earlier it was His Highness Tenlon Hai who said that he wouldn't be responsible for any casualties when sparring with the immortal Qianbian Gate. Since this is what His Highness said, in that case. Changqing Longhao's voice was as calm as ever. Qin Wentian mockingly laughed. You can't afford to lose. The experts from the Tenlon Heaven Kingdom went up to support the injured. The coldness radiating from them was as intense as ever. However, the young man from the Battle Saint tribe calmly spoke. You all have to pay a price for being too full of yourself. After speaking, he directly turned and walked down the platform, returning to stand behind Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian lifted his wine cup and drank a mouthful. His eyes didn't shift to the side as he spoke. It's fine if you all want to challenge me. However, it's best not to send just anyone. I'm not that free. Also, for those powers that want to challenge me, as long as I accept the challenge, when the people from my immortal Qianbian Gate wish to challenge one of you, don't pretend to be so noble and lofty. The meaning of Qin Wentian's words was very clear. If the Tenlon Heaven Kingdom wanted to find trouble with him, they would have to pay a corresponding price. In addition, he would also return the favor. After the people from the immortal Qianbian Gate challenged him, if Tenlon Hai didn't accept the challenge, the immortal Qianbian Gate wouldn't accept it. There are many experts from the immortal Qianbian Gate. Their formation consists of over 100 people, and there are people from all levels of Immortal Foundation. It won't be difficult to find opponents to challenge. At this moment, an expert from the Solar Sky Mountain provoked. It's indeed a good challenge. If you all wish to challenge me, I welcome you all to do so at any time. Qin Wentian smiled at the experts from the Solar Sky Mountain, feeling extremely confident. The youths from the Battle Saint tribe he brought out weren't all at the high level of Immortal Foundation. Instead, he chose the most outstanding ones based on their talent and adaptability. Their innate talent was already extremely outstanding, and after the baptism of the sacred luminance, their talent was extremely terrifying. There was really nothing to be worried about in such a battle. Since this is the case, I do wish to experience it for myself. An expert from the Solar Sky Mountain coldly spoke. Before this, Qin Wentian ordered one of his subordinates to cripple one of their experts, and that expert was a peak-level Immortal Foundation expert. An expert from the Solar Sky Mountain walked out. He was at the 7th level of Immortal Foundation and exuded an extraordinary aura. With a single glance, one could tell that he was different from the expert who was crippled. He should be an extraordinary genius from the Solar Sky Mountain, a direct descendant of the Solar Sky Mountain. This person stood there, exuding a unique aura. He stared in the direction of the Immortal Qianbian Gate as he spoke. Would someone from the Immortal Qianbian Gate please guide me? Qin Wentian glanced behind him. A moment later, a young man from the Battle Saint tribe with a cultivation base at the 7th level walked out, standing opposite the expert from the Solar Sky Mountain. His aura was similarly extraordinary, and the moment he stood there, he gave off a feeling that every part of his body was filled with battle might. It was like he was an innate battle saint. How does the Solar Sky Mountain want to fight? What is the bottom line for both parties? Qin Wentian asked. Since you have already said before, injuries and deaths are unavoidable in sparring. If not, it would be very hard for them to unleash their full strength if we allow them to control their attacks. Just let them do what they want. The expert from the Solar Sky Mountain seemed to be exceptionally confident in the young man who stood on the platform. He spoke in a calm voice. In the previous battle, an expert from the Solar Sky Mountain was crippled. He naturally had to take revenge. Fine. Qin Wentian only spoke a single word and didn't say anything more. The young man from the Solar Sky Mountain released his Immortal Foundation. This time around, the scene was much more magnificent compared to the previous two battles. The entire sky above the battle platform changed color as a diagram of destructive flames appeared in the air. Bolts of lightning could be seen flickering within the flames, creating a scene of destruction. The Immortal Foundation formed from the fusion of astral rivers appeared. It was a fearsome fire-type greater demon with a malevolent head and a gigantic body, exuding a baleful aura. With a single glance, one could tell that this Immortal Foundation was a fusion of a beast-type astral soul, a fire-type astral soul, and a lightning-type astral soul. Roar! A heaven-shaking roar rang out as the Immortal Foundation of a divine ape appeared. The Immortal Foundation of the experts from the Battle Saint tribe was none other than the divine ape. This was the totem of their tribe, and their Immortal Foundations were all formed from the divine ape. This divine ape was incomparably gigantic and was clad in a golden body. With a single glance, it seemed to contain boundless might, able to shatter the heavens. The expert from the Solar Sky Mountain stepped out. Both of them stood in the starry space as boundless lightning and flames radiated with destructive light, blasting towards the expert from the Battle Saint tribe. The gigantic shadow of the divine ape stood behind the young man from the Battle Saint tribe, augmenting his might. With a single glance, it was as though this young man from the Battle Saint tribe was a king of battle. He was clad in a resplendent battle armor that seemed indestructible. The powerful might of the immortal foundation blasted onto him, yet it had no effect at all. The gazes of everyone turned to the young man from the Battle Saint tribe, feeling fear in their hearts. Which tribe is this expert from? His combat prowess is actually so strong, like an innate king of battle. The spectators mused. To think that there would actually be such an elite existence in the immortal Qinbian Gate. Only to see that at this moment, the young man from the Battle Saint tribe blasted out with his palms. The divine ape shadow behind him moved in sync with him as a fearsome divine ape palm imprint blasted out, wanting to annihilate everything. The expert from the Solar Sky Mountain roared and punched out with both his fists. The greater demon howled in rage as it blasted out, causing rumbling sounds of destruction to shake the heavens and earth. Terrifying aftershocks blasted into the light barrier around the battle platform, causing the incomparably sturdy platform to tremble. Boom! With a deafening sound, the spectators only saw the greater flame demon shattering into pieces. The destructive light barrier in the air crumbled inch by inch, creating a scene of destruction. The expert from the Solar Sky Mountain screamed in agony as his immortal foundation was destroyed, becoming a cripple. When the spectators saw the gigantic fist of the divine ape dissipating, there was only one word in their minds: powerful. The combat prowess of this subordinate of Qin Wentian from the immortal Qinbian Gate was simply too overbearing. Such combat prowess was definitely at the peak. Also, the light around the young man from the Battle Saint tribe, as well as his immortal foundation, were so perfect and flawless, there were no flaws at all. This bestowed him with an incomparably tyrannical attack power. Sorry, I didn't expect him to be so weak that he couldn't even withstand a single strike. The young man from the Battle Saint tribe glanced in the direction of the Solar Sky Mountain before he descended, preparing to return. Hold on. A voice rang out from the direction of the Supreme Sword School. A young man with an ancient sword strapped to his back stared at the battle platform as he spoke. I really wish to spar with you, sir. Can you grant me some guidance? The young man from the Battle Saint tribe glanced at Qin Wentian only to see Qin Wentian nodding his head lightly. He then replied, sure. When sparring, don't go overboard, don't destroy your opponent's immortal foundation, and don't harm your opponent's life. How about it? In the direction of the Supreme Sword School, someone spoke to Qin Wentian. It was as though they feared the tyrannical combat prowess of the young man from the Battle Saint tribe and didn't want to end up like the expert from the Solar Sky Mountain. Sure. Qin Wentian nodded in reply. Since the other party took the initiative to speak, he naturally wouldn't give face to the Supreme Sword School. Chapter 1106. The expert from the Supreme Sword School was also at the 7th level of Immortal Foundation, the same as the young man from the Battle Saint tribe. The Supreme Sword School was a peak power in the eastern regions. They naturally wouldn't use people with a higher cultivation base to spar. The expert from the Battle Saint tribe had an ancient sword on his back. He walked towards the expert from the Battle Saint tribe and bowed. Sir, I can see that your attacks are extremely powerful. The people from my Supreme Sword School are also proficient in attacking. Please guide us. The young man from the Battle Saint tribe nodded. After that, the divine ape shadow appeared again as a battle armor revolved around him, shining resplendently, exuding a fearsome might. Those chosen by D. Tian from the Battle Saint tribe were all people with the most outstanding combat prowess. All of them had an innate advantage and were born to be warriors. Even if their ancestors were stripped of their strongest inheritance, they still had to awaken their Battle Saint blood in order to become a core disciple. One could say that their blood and bones were all burning with a will to battle. Before this, the aura they exuded was the same as well. The people around Qin Wentian from the Thousand Transformations Immortal sect seem to be from the same powerful clan and have cultivated the same techniques. No wonder the Thousand Transformations Immortal sect could stand against the Eastern Sage Immortal sect. Seems like they have some extraordinary aspects. Someone silently mused. An expert from the Paragon Sword sect radiated a terrifying sword might. The sword of the Paragon Sword sect contained the aura of a paragon. The entire sky was filled with sword might and sword intent. He stood in the center, a paragon of swords, able to control the sword might in the sky. Numerous sharp swords floated behind this expert from the Paragon Sword sect. There were tens of thousands of swords, and each of them had sword runes on them. These runes were the terrifying laws of the sword, and with a single glance, they seemed invincible. There was no one who could block his sword. Everyone stared at this battle. A powerful attack against a supreme defense. Would this expert from the Supreme Sword School be able to break through the battle armor of his opponent? Sir, be careful. That expert from the Supreme Sword School pointed out with his finger. A moment later, the 10,000 swords shot out, containing Paragon sword might. Each sword contained law energy and runic light, exuding terrifying might. The light radiating from the young man from the Battle Saint tribe was boundlessly resplendent. Even his body seemed to be able to radiate light as his body expanded. His entire body was like an indestructible divine weapon, shimmering with terrifying runic light. He punched out as battle chi gushed forth from the bones in his body, suppressing everything. The sword chi directly shattered and some of the sword might blasted into his body, yet they had no way to break through the battle armor he wore. Upon seeing this scene, that expert from the Supreme Sword School froze. The sword might around him abruptly dissipated as he stared ahead in a daze. As a heaven chosen from the Supreme Sword School, his cultivation base could be considered very high as well. But this battle just started and he already understood that he had no chance of victory. It was basically impossible. Sir, your talent is truly shocking, 1 in 100 million. I'm impressed. The swordsman from the Supreme Sword School clasped his hands and admitted defeat to the young man from the Battle Saint tribe. After that, he walked away. The young man from the Battle Saint tribe also turned and returned to the side of Qin Wentian. Seems like at the 7th level of Immortal Foundation, most probably no one would be able to stand against the Immortal Qianbian Gate. He wondered if the Tenlon Heaven Kingdom would have such a demon-level character that could stand against that young man with such shocking talent. The Immortal Qianbian Gate did produce 1 or 2 geniuses. Tenlon Jiang saw many people glancing over at him. He then continued, however, that's all there is to it. Is that so? Does the Tenlon Heaven Kingdom want to spar with someone from my Immortal Qianbian Gate? If this is the case, I'm more than happy to accompany you. Qin Wentian replied. Tenlon Jiang's gaze was filled with provocation when he stared at Qin Wentian. He wanted nothing more than to kill Qin Wentian right now. However, he wouldn't forget the purpose of his trip here. This time around, he came for the sake of the Evergreen Kingdom. It wouldn't be too late to settle the debt with Qin Wentian later. Ignoring Qin Wentian's voice, Tenlon Jiang, the prince of the Tenlon Heaven Kingdom, looked at the experts of the Evergreen Kingdom again and said with a smile, I heard that Princess Qing'er is the disciple of GD. She is extremely talented and is destined to be an emperor. Like Princess Liuli, she is also a talented and beautiful princess of the Evergreen Kingdom. Today, I only see Princess Liuli. Is Princess Qing'er in the palace? My sister is currently cultivating at Matriarch Ji's place. She isn't in the royal palace. Evergreen Longhao didn't know what Sky Miss Jiang was trying to say. He actually suddenly mentioned Qing'er. That's a pity. My younger brother, Tenlon Hai, has fallen in love with Princess Liuli at first sight. He wants to see Princess Qing'er again to fulfill one of his wishes. This guy is impatient and always wants to marry her as soon as possible. Tenlon Jiang said with a smile, I have mentioned to him many times that the 2 princesses will become his concubines to fulfill the agreement between the elders and bring the 2 princesses to the Tenlon Heaven Kingdom. However, he is so impatient that he insists on coming to pick them up in person. Your Highness Jiang. When Changqing Longhao heard the other party's words, his tone gradually became serious and he said, Don't talk nonsense. My father is in charge of the Evergreen Kingdom now. My father has never betrothed Sister Qing'er and Sister Liuli to anyone else, let alone to His Highness Tenlon Hai. Your Highness Zhang's words will damage the reputation of the two princesses. Although your Highness is a guest, please be careful with your words. With someone as a witness and a deed as proof, how can I talk nonsense about such a thing? The people who will step on the platform later will be the members of the royal family of the Tenlon Heaven Kingdom. If His Highness Long Hao is not satisfied with my younger brother, Tenlon Hai, you can also look for others. If they can be favored by His Highness Long Hao and be betrothed to the princesses, it will be their glory. Tenlon Jiang laughed uproariously. Alright, let's talk about this after we meet the Evergreen Immortal Emperor. From now on, all of you better perform well, don't disappoint His Highness Long Hao. There were several young geniuses beside Tenlon Jiang. Before this, they had been quietly standing there, exuding an extraordinary aura. They followed the envoy group to the Evergreen Kingdom and were all members of the royal family of the Tenlon Heaven Kingdom. In addition, they were the most outstanding Immortal Foundation characters in the royal family. If not, the Tenlon Heaven Kingdom wouldn't have sent them here to embarrass themselves. Evergreen Longhao's eyes flashed with unhappiness. The Sky Mist Immortal Empire was in his imperial palace, yet they didn't hold back their words at all, not bothering to restrain themselves. You guys go up. Sky Mist Jiang spoke to a group of people on the right. As the sound of his voice faded, 9 figures walked out and stepped onto the battle platform. These 9 people had a common point, all of them were at the upper 3rd level of Immortal Foundation. The weakest among them was at the 7th level of Immortal Foundation. The 9 of them stood in a row as a fearsome might gushed forth from them, causing their auras to intensify. It's too slow to spar one by one. His Highness Long Hao can get the Evergreen Kingdom to send 9 experts at the 7th level and above to spar. Any cultivation level is fine. Tenlon Jiang spoke. After he spoke, the 9 of them turned to Changqing Long Hao and spoke in unison, please guide us. Qin Wentian stared at these experts from the Tenlon Heaven Kingdom. These people came prepared and most probably wouldn't be easy to deal with. Although Tenlon Jiang allowed Changqing Long Hao to choose whichever cultivation level he wanted, it was naturally impossible for the major powers to send 9 9th-level Immortal Foundation experts to spar. They would choose people of the same cultivation level as the 9 opponents. Who is willing to fight? Changqing Long Hao didn't expect that Tenlon Jiang didn't challenge them one by one and directly issued a challenge to all 9 of them. For a moment, he felt a headache coming on. This time around, the Evergreen Kingdom had also made preparations. There were some extremely demon-level geniuses from the Evergreen Kingdom and if they fought alone, their chances of victory would be very high. But for a group battle, they would need to have the strength of the entire group. Nobility geniuses from the Evergreen Kingdom stepped out one after another, all of them radiating a sharp battle might. Changqing Long Hao chose 9 outstanding geniuses and as expected, their cultivation bases were exactly the same as the 9 opponents. They didn't take advantage of the Tenlon Heaven Kingdom at all. It's my honor to be able to spar with the geniuses from the Evergreen Kingdom Palace. If I accidentally injure any of you later, I hope that you won't take offense. A person clasped his hands and spoke. The experts from the Evergreen Kingdom coldly snorted in their hearts, but there were also people who clasped their hands and smiled, same here. Everyone, please. Rumble, rumble, rumble. Terrifying auras gushed forth as a miraculous scene appeared in the air. The 9 experts from the Tenlon Heaven Kingdom stood in different locations, waiting in formation. This battle platform was very large and could easily accommodate 18 people fighting. As long as they didn't flee, their combat prowess wouldn't be affected. In the vast space, the experts from the various powers stared at this scene. 18 experts at the upper 3 levels of Immortal Foundation unleashed their Immortal Foundation might at the same time was extremely shocking. The resplendent light caused everyone to be dazzled. What are they doing? At this moment, the eyes of the crowd froze. The 9 experts from the Tenlon Heaven Kingdom actually stood in a formation with an 8th-level Immortal Foundation expert in the center. The others seemed to be supporting him, setting up defenses. That 8th level Immortal Foundation expert floated in the air as the shadow of a divine elephant appeared behind him. It was incomparably gigantic, and it inclined its head and let out a roar of rage, causing the light barrier around the battle platform to tremble. This divine elephant was bathed in a circular diagram, as though it was bathed in divine light. The dripping bloodline of the Tenlon Heaven Kingdom inherited the power of the divine elephant, using the divine elephant as their totem. This person must be a true descendant of the royal bloodline of the Tenlon Heaven Kingdom and is also a prince character. In addition, he is many times more outstanding compared to Tenlon High. The hearts of everyone were as clear as a mirror when they saw this scene. The 9 experts from the Evergreen Immortal Empire were all extraordinary as well. They instantly launched their attacks, only to see the expert bathed in divine elephants roaring. An incomparably gigantic elephant manifested and directly trampled downwards. Such supreme strength caused the hearts of everyone to tremble. The 8 experts in the surroundings also set up defenses for him, as though they wanted to hand the battle to him. Boom! A nobility expert from the Evergreen Kingdom was trampled by the gigantic elephant. His cultivation base was at the 8th level of Immortal Foundation, and he unleashed a terrifying attack, wanting to shatter the elephant. However, the strength of the elephant was so great that it was impossible to block it. Careful! The others all rushed over, unleashing tyrannical attacks at the gigantic elephant, destroying the shadow of the elephant. However, the person who was struck still coughed out a mouthful of blood. Another heaven-shaking elephant trumpet rang out. The divine light behind that expert from the Tenlon Heaven Kingdom unceasingly cascaded downwards as particles of light shot out. These particles suddenly grew incomparably large, transforming into a gigantic demonic elephant that caused the sky to change color. Law of Sumeru. The eyes of everyone flashed as their hearts pounded. Law of Sumeru was an extremely rare type of energy. Chapter 1107. Sumeru referred to boundlessness. High-grade storage worlds not only contain spatial law energy, they also contain Sumeru energy. This was the so-called Sumeru mustard seed. Sumeru mustard seed could hide a boundlessly vast world within a single particle. Sumeru law energy contained a miraculous ability. Just like the ability used by this genius from the Tenlon Heaven Kingdom, he could transform a single particle of energy into a gigantic divine elephant, unleashing a terrifying might that could destroy the heavens and earth. The countenances of the experts from the Evergreen Heaven Kingdom all grew unsightly. They inclined their heads and stared at the sky. The gigantic space of the battle platform was completely enveloped by the divine elephants, wanting to destroy everything. Every single particle transformed into a gigantic elephant, capable of crushing humans to death. The disciples from the Evergreen Heaven Kingdom were all extremely powerful. They forcefully used their attacks to break through the suppression. However, at this moment, the other experts from the Tenlon Heaven Kingdom didn't forget to attack while defending. In the blink of an eye, several experts from the Evergreen Kingdom were injured. The battle didn't last for too long, but it felt like the outcome of this battle was already determined. The talent of this man is extremely high. Qin Wentian glanced at the 8th level Immortal Foundation expert. His opponent's Divine Elephant Immortal Foundation seemed to be on the verge of perfection. It should be a 5th-tier King-grade Immortal Foundation, just a step away from becoming a perfect Saint-grade Immortal Foundation. In addition to his Sumeru energy, Divine Elephant energy, as well as other powerful law energy, they transformed into a tyrannical innate technique that contained terrifying might. In this battle, the Evergreen Kingdom would definitely be defeated. There wasn't a single genius who could contend against this expert. And as expected, the battle was one-sided. Under the leadership of the terrifying genius from the Tenlon Heaven Kingdom, the Evergreen Kingdom was swiftly defeated. One by one, the experts from the Evergreen Kingdom were all injured, and the battle ended very quickly. The spectators were all in a daze when they saw the end of the battle. They didn't expect the Evergreen Kingdom to be defeated so quickly and in such a miserable manner. The envoy from the Tenlon Heaven Kingdom was at the upper 3 levels of the Tenlon Heaven Kingdom, yet they completely defeated the disciples from the Evergreen Kingdom who were at the nobility level. Thank you for letting me win. Sky Mist Jiang had a faint smile on his face as he spoke. Your Highness Longhao, seems like after that incident in the past, the Evergreen Immortal Empire has suffered a great blow. The talents of the younger generations are all much weaker. If this is the case, once the Evergreen Immortal Empire starts a war again, I'm afraid they would definitely suffer a calamity. Sky Mist Jiang's words were filled with an unmasked threat. It was as though he wanted to use this spar to remind the Evergreen Immortal Empire of something. It's only normal for juniors to be strong or weak. Your Highness Jiang actually dared to look down on the strength of my Evergreen Immortal Empire just because of a sparring match? Isn't that ridiculous? Back then, the Sky Mist Immortal Empire didn't look favorably on my father, but now, my father has already become the Immortal Emperor of the Evergreen Immortal Empire, controlling this vast territory. It's normal for the younger generation to be strong and weak. Your Highness Jiang, isn't it ridiculous to deny the strength of the Evergreen Kingdom just because of a battle? In the past, the Tenlon Heaven Kingdom didn't look favorably upon my father. But now, my father has become the great emperor of the Evergreen Kingdom. Not necessarily. To some extent, the strength of the younger generation reflects the strength of the faction. Tenlon Jiang replied with a laugh. What a joke. Just because you have carefully prepared a battle and won, you think that you can suppress everything? From afar, a voice boomed out. Only to see several figures flying over from the air, all of them exuding extraordinary auras. When they came to the side of Evergreen Longhao, there were people who instantly gave way. These people were all nobility characters of the Evergreen Immortal Empire. It's getting more and more lively. Tenlon Jiang casually smiled. The people on the platform had already retreated. The leader of the Supreme Sword School laughed, to think that the battle would be so fascinating. Since this is the case, my Supreme Sword School would like to join in the fun as well. My Supreme Sword School also wishes to spar against the geniuses of the Evergreen Kingdom. As the sound of his voice faded, 9 silhouettes stepped out at the same time, directly rushing towards the battle platform. In just an instant, 9 people stood on the platform. These 9 people were all at the middle 3 levels of Immortal Foundation, ranging from the 4th level to the 6th level. At this instant, the gazes of everyone froze. The synchronized movements of the Supreme Sword School didn't seem to be a last-minute spar. Also, as the sound of that person's voice faded, the 9 of them involuntarily stepped out. It was so natural, as though they had long decided to do so. If one were to say that this was a coincidence, no one would believe it. Changqing Longhao's expression instantly turned heavy. This was different from the challenge from the Tenlon Heaven Kingdom earlier. Everyone understood that the Tenlon Heaven Kingdom came with ill intentions and wanted to suppress the Evergreen Kingdom. In fact, they even arrogantly came to the royal palace to propose marriage, wanting to bring away the 2 most outstanding princesses of the Evergreen Kingdom. However, the Supreme Sword School didn't do so. The Evergreen Kingdom didn't know that the Supreme Sword School would do the same thing as the Tenlon Heaven Kingdom at this moment. This indicated that the Supreme Sword School might have joined forces with the Tenlon Heaven Kingdom. Among the major powers of the eastern regions, the Evergreen Kingdom was situated in the middle. To their north was the Tenlon Heaven Kingdom, while to their south was the Supreme Sword School. One in the south, the Evergreen Kingdom was sandwiched in the middle. If these 2 powers had the intention to join forces to deal with the Evergreen Kingdom, it would be extremely unfavorable news to the Evergreen Kingdom. And right now, the Paragon Sword Sect's actions clearly had this layer of meaning hidden within. The expressions of the experts of the Immortal Qianbian Gate also changed slightly. The people here were all people with extraordinary wisdom. How could they not see the subtlety of the situation? Before this, Qin Wendian saw that the Supreme Sword School was quite polite to the various powers, but he didn't expect that they had been preparing for such a sudden challenge. The Evergreen Kingdom is located in the middle of the Tenlon Heaven Kingdom and the Supreme Sword School. If these 2 powers join forces to suppress the Evergreen Kingdom, it will definitely be disastrous news for the Evergreen Kingdom, and our Immortal Qianbian Gate will also appear to be in a passive position. Beside Qin Wendian, an immortal king transmitted his voice to Qin Wendian. The immortal Qianbian Gate was slightly weak in the eastern regions of the immortal realm. As a newly rising power, it was surrounded by various powers. Therefore, the immortal Qianbian Gate wanted to make friends with some powers and make use of the relationship between Qin Wendian and Qing'er. This would undoubtedly make the Evergreen Kingdom and the immortal Qianbian Gate friendly, but at the same time, they would also have to bear the hostility of the Tenlan Heaven Kingdom. This was relative, there were pros and cons. But with the Supreme Sword School's involvement, if the immortal Qianbian Gate got too close to the Evergreen Kingdom, from the perspective of the immortal Qianbian Gate, it would completely do more harm than good. Qin Wendian nodded lightly. He naturally understood this principle. But from his personal standpoint, he would not care about these battles between the immortal kingdoms for the time being. However, the Tenlan Heaven Kingdom used Qing'er as an excuse to humiliate and make Qing'er marry Tenlan Hai. This was absolutely unacceptable to him. The atmosphere of the banquet gradually changed. Anyone could see that this conspiracy against the Evergreen Kingdom was slowly unfolding. The Tenlan Heaven Kingdom and the Supreme Sword School entered the palace of the Evergreen Kingdom in the name of learning from each other, openly provoking and suppressing the Evergreen Kingdom. Moreover, the Supreme Sword School did not do anything out of line from the beginning to the end. This was originally a battle platform for learning from each other. The Supreme Sword School only said that they wanted to learn from each other with the nobility disciples of the Evergreen Kingdom. That was all. The Evergreen Kingdom could only accept the challenge. Chongqing Longhao's cold eyes flickered as he looked at the geniuses around him. Back then, the internal strife of the Evergreen Kingdom had indeed weakened the strength of the immortal kingdoms. Many talented and outstanding people had perished in that disaster. The forces that were hostile to the Chongqing the Great also had many geniuses from the immortal kingdoms. However, after they were defeated, most of them were killed. Now, the strength of the Evergreen Kingdom at all levels could be said to be inferior to the Tenlan Heaven Kingdom. In fact, it was unknown if the Evergreen Kingdom could even be compared to the Supreme Sword School. These two forces seemed to be taking this opportunity to stop the rise of the Evergreen Kingdom. Please guide me. On the battle platform, the experts of the Supreme Sword School stared at Chongqing Longhao as they urged. Many of the mid-tier third-level Immortal Foundation experts from the Evergreen Kingdom stepped out, wanting to fight. Finally, Chongqing Longhao chose 9 experts and allowed them to step onto the battle platform. In an instant, the 9 Immortal Foundation experts from the Supreme Sword School radiated boundless sword might. The person in the center was the strongest. He had a cultivation base at the 6th level of Immortal Foundation, and the sword intent radiating from him was a king among paragons. His gaze was incomparably sharp, and with a wave of his finger, the sword might from the surrounding experts gathered towards him, allowing him to control the sword might of others. Not good. The countenances of the experts from the Evergreen Kingdom drastically changed. This person was actually the legendary Sword King of the Supreme Sword School. He was an innate Sword King and could control any sword chi or sword might. In fact, he could even control the sword might of others and use it for himself. He was a true paragon of swords. The geniuses of the Evergreen Kingdom are in for it. They will lose for sure. Many people spoke in a low voice. Qin Wendian turned his gaze to the Immortal King beside him only to hear the Immortal King speaking in a low voice. The Supreme Sword School has its own unique inheritance. There are demon-level geniuses who would be able to give birth to a paragon sword soul after obtaining the inheritance. Only 1 in a billion would be born, and they are naturally the kings of swords. Every time such a character appears in the Supreme Sword School, they would become the leader of their generation and have to be nurtured with all their might. The Sword Lord candidate of the Supreme Sword School is somewhat similar to the holy successor of the Namhuang clan. However, the holy successor would only be chosen once every 100 years, but such a person might not even appear in the Supreme Sword School in 10 million years. As the two of them were conversing, the battle had already erupted. Qin Wendian turned his gaze over and saw the innate Sword King displaying his might. He was incomparably proficient in controlling swords, and the sword intent of the 9 experts were all concentrated on him. When he slashed out with his sword, it was like a bolt of lightning, instantly piercing through the body of an expert. That expert screamed in agony as he slammed into the barrier of light. However, he didn't die. Clearly, his opponent had perfect control over his attack. The other experts from the Evergreen Kingdom all launched their attacks, yet they only saw that innate Sword King standing proudly in the air. With a wave of his hand, a resplendent screen of swords appeared before him, destroying all the incoming attacks. He then pointed his finger in a certain direction. Instantly, numerous beams of sword light shot out, so fast that the eyes of the spectators couldn't even keep up with the speed of the swords. Another piercing sound rang out as the body of that expert was pierced through. He was defeated. There's no suspense at all. Qin Wentian silently mused when he saw this scene. In this vast space, the experts from the various powers all had the same thought. They stared at the battle platform, watching as the experts from the Evergreen Kingdom fell one after another. Chapter 1108. Staring at the end of the battle, the 9 marquises from the Evergreen Immortal Empire were all defeated, their bodies dyed red with blood. The spectators couldn't help but to sigh silently. Seems like the younger generations of the Evergreen Immortal Empire were somewhat lacking. However, this couldn't be blamed. After the turmoil, the bloodline of the Evergreen Immortal Emperor didn't produce too many descendants. As for the Tenlon Heaven Kingdom, it had always been controlling the internal strife of the Evergreen Kingdom. The Supreme Sword School had also silently developed for many years, their foundation was much deeper compared to the Evergreen Kingdom after the turmoil. From a certain perspective, Tenlon Zhang's words weren't without reason. The younger generation of a power could reflect the foundation of a power. If the overall strength of the younger generation of a power was clearly stronger than the other powers, this indicated that the foundation of that power was already very deep. Naturally, the sparring on the platform might not be able to represent the overall strength of the younger generation, but at the very least, some clues could be seen. The 9 members of the Supreme Sword School stood in a row and clasped their hands to the young man from the Evergreen Kingdom. "Thank you for letting me win." Complete victory, the Supreme Sword School is indeed a supreme sect of the sword. Not only that, they even gave birth to an innate king of the sword. In comparison, the Evergreen Kingdom seems to be lacking. Tenlon Jiang calmly spoke. "Given your strength, Your Highness Longhao actually still dares to deny the agreement between the 2 great immortal empires. This is truly surprising. A spar is a spar, but a promise is another matter altogether. Your Highness Jiang, aren't you going a little too far by mixing the 2 together again and again?" Evergreen Longhao's voice turned cold. He seemed very displeased. "Why can't you mix them together? The Evergreen Kingdom experienced the turmoil, could it be that you have forgotten some of the rules of the immortal realms?" Tenlon Jiang coldly spoke. "In the vast immortal realms, our eastern regions naturally have their own rules. If the Evergreen Kingdom dares to go back on their words, my Tenlon Heaven Kingdom has the qualifications to invite the major powers of the eastern regions to carry out the adjudication. If Your Highness Longhao has forgotten this ancient rule, you can seek guidance from the Evergreen Immortal Emperor when you return. A rule from tens of thousands of years ago, you dare to bring it out to threaten my Evergreen Kingdom?" Evergreen Longhao's countenance gradually turned sharp. His Evergreen Immortal Empire was an immortal empire, yet now, the Skymist Immortal Empire actually wanted to use the rules that were abandoned many years ago, instigating the major powers of the eastern regions to conduct an adjudication, wanting to enforce the agreement. This was simply ridiculous. No wonder they would come to the Evergreen Kingdom Palace to spar. Seems like His Highness Longhao also knows about this. Your Evergreen Immortal Empire isn't abiding by the agreement. Could it be that my Skymist Immortal Empire directly declared war against the Evergreen Immortal Empire? If I do that, it would be of the adjudication of the Evergreen Emperor, and the Evergreen Green, of the Major of the Evergreen Immortal Tian, Kingdom of, I is. Tenlon Jiang spoke slowly. Ever since he arrived at the imperial city of the Evergreen Kingdom, he had been advancing step by step, pressing forward step by step. It was obvious that he had been planning this for a long time. "Senior, what is the Immortal Realm adjudication?" Qin Wentian transmitted his voice to the Immortal King beside him. "This is something that happened many years ago. Countless years ago, when the immortal realms were unified, the various powers were all governed by the strongest ancient emperors. Nobody dared to disobey them. However, the immortal realms were simply too vast and the ancient emperors pursued supreme cultivation realms. They basically had no time to govern the immortal realms and hence, the various powers still acted on their own. Between the various powers, there would often be conflicts or agreements. At this time, in order to prevent chaos from erupting, the envoys of the ancient emperors would let the various powers in the immortal realms conduct the adjudication, allowing the various powers to decide the final direction of the situation. The immortal king at the side explained to Qin Wentian, "It's just that after that, the immortal realms were divided and reunited. After the death of an ancient emperor, the various powers in the immortal realms rose up and there was no longer an absolute ruler to govern the immortal realms. Naturally, there would be endless disputes and the adjudication of the immortal realms no longer existed. Only a few tens of thousands of years ago did an adjudication of the immortal realms occur and that was the last time it happened. In the past, under the rule of the ancient emperors, the envoys of the ancient emperors would only carry out the adjudication for the sake of balance. But now, there are no ancient emperors in the immortal realms. The Tenlon Heaven Kingdom wants to carry out the adjudication. Doesn't this mean that they are joining forces with the other major powers to forcefully suppress the Evergreen Kingdom? And those other major powers actually dare to interfere in the matters of other countries? This is simply rude to the extreme." Qin Wentian felt rage in his heart. That's exactly what I mean. The Tenlon Heaven Kingdom wants to act on their own and carry out the adjudication. If the adjudication agreement is established, the princess of the Evergreen Kingdom would be brought away and the Evergreen Kingdom would become a laughingstock. That immortal king transmitted his voiceover. What if the Evergreen Kingdom doesn't agree? Qin Wentian asked. As long as more than half of the participants agree, the Evergreen Immortal Empire would have no choice but to carry out the adjudication. If the Evergreen Immortal Empire and the others who reject the adjudication, they can start a adjudication battle. The ones who agree and those who reject the adjudication battle can be at the Immortal Foundation Realm, Immortal King Realm or even Immortal Emperor Realm. For example, if Matriarch Ji and the Evergreen Immortal Empire object, while the Violet Emperor, Sky Mist Immortal Empire and the Paragon Sword Sect agree, Matriarch Ji and the Evergreen Immortal Empire can proceed with the adjudication battle. For every battle, life and death must be determined. If they win, the adjudication battle would be nullified. If they lose, they would have to pay double the agreed price. The Immortal King continued to transmit his voice over to Qin Wentian. If the Evergreen Kingdom is defeated and still refuses to carry out the adjudication battle, it would mean that they have declared war against the other major powers. Naturally, the Evergreen Kingdom can also directly declare war and choose not to carry out the adjudication battle. However, no one would be willing to carry out such a war. Even for the Tenlon Heaven Kingdom, the repercussions of such a war would be too great. The Tenlon Heaven Kingdom most probably wouldn't dare to say that they have the confidence to destroy the Evergreen Kingdom. In that case, the battle today is merely a vanguard battle. The Tenlon Heaven Kingdom is constantly pressuring the Evergreen Kingdom and even joined forces with the Supreme Sword School to display their strength. They want the Evergreen Kingdom to abide by the agreement and suppress the Evergreen Kingdom bit by bit. Qin Wentian's eyes flashed. The Immortal King beside him nodded lightly. This battle had been planned for a long time. The matters of my Evergreen Kingdom have yet to be decided by the other major powers. Abruptly, a cold and tyrannical voice rang out in the air, reverberating through the air. It was unknown who the owner of the voice was, but the formless pressure radiating from it caused even immortal kings to feel immense pressure. The owner of the voice should be an immortal emperor-level existence. That's right. The Tenlon Heaven Kingdom actually dares to bring up the matters of the ancient emperor era? How laughable. Changqing Long Hao also coldly spoke. Let me reiterate once more. The agreement made in the past cannot represent my Evergreen Kingdom. Firstly, this agreement is null and void. Is that so? Sky Mist Jiang coldly laughed. After that, he waved his hand as a scroll appeared in the air. This scroll shone with a resplendent light as it floated in the air, slowly unfurling itself. The gazes of the crowd turned over, and when they saw the words written on the scroll, their eyes gleamed with sharpness. I'm sure the nobility experts of the Evergreen Kingdom, as well as His Highness, are all familiar with the seal of the Evergreen Kingdom. This is the seal of the Evergreen Immortal Empire. Do you really think you can just deny it? Tenlon Jiang calmly spoke. That seal was a diagram, the Evergreen diagram of the Evergreen Kingdom. This was the seal of the Evergreen Immortal Empire. It was inscribed by the character who fought against the Chongqing the Great for the throne back then. Everyone should have seen it clearly, right? Tenlon Jiang waved his hand as the diagram flew back to him. He then turned his gaze to the various experts as he asked, "Does everyone think that the Evergreen Kingdom will abide by the agreement?" Many major powers hurriedly avoided the gaze of Tenlon Jiang. This was a battle between two immortal empires. How would they dare to interfere so easily? Since it's an agreement, we naturally have to abide by it. An expert from the Solar Sky Mountain spoke. Since there's an agreement, the Evergreen Kingdom, as a peak power of the eastern regions, should naturally abide by it. An expert from the Supreme Sword School stated his stance, confirming that they were on the same side as the Tenlon Heaven Kingdom. Most probably, the Tenlon Heaven Kingdom had promised them some benefits. Chongqing Longhao's expression was extremely unsightly to behold. He turned his gaze to the other two major powers. In the direction of the Celestial Palace, an expert from the Evergreen Kingdom laughed. "With the agreement in place, I believe the Evergreen Kingdom should abide by it." "Everyone, it seems like you guys don't mind the matter being blown out of proportion." Chongqing Longhao coldly spoke. The Supreme Sword School, Tenlon Heaven Kingdom, Celestial Palace, as well as Zidi's side. Seems like these people were intending to facilitate the adjudication of the immortal realms. To the Celestial Palace and the Taihua Empire, they were actually more than happy to see the two great immortal empires fighting each other. In any case, they only wanted to watch the show. In fact, it would be even more interesting if a war broke out between the two empires. Although this agreement exists, there's still some controversy. Princess Qing'er and Princess Liuli are both outstanding juniors, and our Taihua Immortal Dynasty has also produced many outstanding youths during these years. If the Evergreen Kingdom is willing to form a marriage alliance with our Taihua Immortal Dynasty, the two princesses would already have a husband. An expert from the Taihua Immortal Dynasty laughed, his words causing the experts from the Tenlon Heaven Kingdom and the Evergreen Kingdom to silently curse this old fox in their hearts. My royal father and the White Emperor naturally have their own plans regarding the marriage of the two princesses. The two princesses naturally have the right to choose, they naturally wouldn't be affected by the so-called agreement. They also wouldn't sacrifice themselves for the benefit of the empire. Chongqing Longhao coldly spoke. The expert from the Taihua Immortal Dynasty laughed, "Since your highness has already said this, my Taihua Immortal Dynasty naturally won't say anything more. Just treat it as though I've never said anything." The atmosphere of the immortal banquet was extremely heavy. Looking at the situation, the Tenlon Heaven Kingdom was already strong enough to initiate the adjudication. If the Evergreen Kingdom didn't agree to the adjudication, which direction would this conflict develop towards? Would it cause a huge commotion in the eastern regions? Chapter 1109. Tenlon Jiang laughed. It was rumored that the Evergreen Immortal Emperor doted on his youngest daughter, Princess Qing'er. In addition, she was the disciple of Ji and had extraordinary talent as well as supreme beauty. This caused this princess to have a transcendent status. Princess Liuli was also extraordinary, she was also the daughter of the White Emperor. Back then when the Evergreen Immortal Emperor was victorious in the Civil War, the White Emperor's contributions couldn't go unnoticed. These two princesses, the Evergreen Kingdom most probably wouldn't hand them over so easily. He stared at Chongqing Longhao as he calmly spoke, "If the Evergreen Kingdom goes back on their words, the immortal adjudication will definitely be carried out. The ancient emperors have long ceased to exist." What immortal adjudication? My Evergreen Kingdom will never acknowledge it. Chongqing Longhao coldly spoke. He could clearly see the situation. If the Evergreen Kingdom initiated the adjudication, more than half of the major powers in the eastern regions would support the Evergreen Kingdom. Using such a method to interfere in the internal affairs of the Evergreen Kingdom, as well as the marriage of the princesses, was simply ridiculous. Seems like the Evergreen Kingdom is determined to go back on their words. Tenlon Jiang coldly spoke. Before this, when they just entered the Evergreen Kingdom, the atmosphere wasn't so heavy. But now, both sides have already laid all their cards on the table. Even the Supreme Sword School stood out. In that case, they might as well suppress the Evergreen Kingdom in the Evergreen Kingdom. They knew the Evergreen Kingdom like the back of their hands. After all, one of Tenlon Jiang's concubines was a princess of the Evergreen Kingdom. Not only so, in the imperial palace of the Tenlon Heaven Kingdom, there were several princesses of the Evergreen Kingdom. All of them hated the Chongqing the Great to the bone. Their loved ones were either killed or had their cultivation bases crippled. In that case, I, the Tenlon Heaven Kingdom, will not stand on ceremony. I will not give in to the disciples of the Evergreen Kingdom like before. I will stop every time. Tenlon Jiang said slowly, in the following battles, our juniors will go all out. We'll let the Evergreen Kingdom have a good look at the royal son of heaven of the Tenlon Heaven Kingdom. Maybe you'll change your mind and marry the princess off. Are they going to get serious? The hearts of everyone trembled. Right now, although the various major powers were present at the immortal banquet, they were only treated as spectators. The so-called sparring had become the eruption point of the conflict between the two empires. They didn't want to get involved in this easily. Kacha! A crisp sound rang out. Although the sound wasn't loud, the hearing of the experts here was extremely sharp. This was obviously the sound of a wine glass being crushed. Many people turned their gazes in the direction of the voice, only to see that in the direction of the Thousand Transformations Immortal Sect, the wine cup that the young man was playing with was crushed to pieces. The wine flowed from his hand, dripping onto the table, emitting a crisp sound. This young man was Qin Wentian. He slowly raised his head and looked in the direction of the Tenlon Heaven Kingdom. His expression was somewhat gloomy and unsightly. That was the immortal realm adjudication. Although he wasn't a citizen of the Evergreen Kingdom and didn't have deep feelings for the Evergreen Kingdom, he was somewhat angry because of Qing. However, what made him even angrier was that Tenlon Jiang had repeatedly mentioned marrying Qing to the Tenlon Heaven Kingdom. He even wanted to use the immortal realm adjudication to decide the future of Qing. I don't care about the agreement between you and the Evergreen Kingdom. Let's have a proper sparring session today. I don't want to hear you saying anything about marrying the princess to the Tenlon Heaven Kingdom. Qin Wentian stared in the direction of the Tenlon Heaven Kingdom's crowd as he spoke coldly. A faint cold intent radiated from him, causing everyone to look at him. He seemed to be very angry. Why was Qin Wentian so angry? Tenlon Jiang frowned. A mere person from the immortal Qianbian Gate dared to threaten an immortal king of the Tenlon Heaven Kingdom? Who do you think you are? Are you even qualified to talk to me like this? The agreement between the Tenlon Heaven Kingdom and the Evergreen Kingdom is not something you can talk about. Tenlon Jiang coldly spat out. He hadn't even settled the score with Qin Wentian, yet this young man actually dared to talk to him like this? How insolent! Is that so? Do you believe that I won't make your Tenlon Heaven Kingdom scram out of this immortal empire with their tails between their legs? Qin Wentian stared at Tenlon Jiang. His arrogant words caused the entire immortal banquet to fall silent. The gazes of everyone turned to Qin Wentian. A young man with a cultivation base at the second level of Immortal Foundation actually dared to threaten the crown prince of the Tenlon Heaven Kingdom, Tenlon Jiang. He said that he would make the Tenlon Heaven Kingdom scram out of the immortal empire with their tails between their legs. How arrogant were these words? The crowd simply didn't dare to imagine that such words would actually come from the mouth of an Immortal Foundation cultivator. How insolent! The experts of the Tenlon Heaven Kingdom stared at Qin Wentian. This person was simply boasting shamelessly. Before this, they didn't seriously look for him to settle the score. Now, he actually grew more and more arrogant, not placing the geniuses of the Tenlon Heaven Kingdom in his eyes at all. Could it be that he thought that just a single existence with terrifying combat prowess would be able to crush the Tenlon Heaven Kingdom? I don't believe it. Tenlon Jiang spat out. He didn't believe it, he truly didn't believe it. He wanted to see what capabilities Qin Wentian had to be so arrogant. Being humiliated by someone from the immortal Qianbian Gate in such an arrogant manner? In that case, he might as well put aside the matter of the Evergreen Kingdom and properly teach the immortal Qianbian Gate a lesson, teaching this young man of the younger generation how to conduct himself. Qida, Qin Wentian called out. Behind him, Qida stepped out and stood beside Qin Wentian. Choose 8 people. Those at the upper 3 levels of Immortal Foundation are to go up. Qin Wentian spoke. Right. Qida nodded. After that, he turned his gaze behind him and directly selected 8 people as they walked up the platform. These 9 people all exuded extraordinary auras and were extremely calm. Although their auras weren't too intense, they gave off an extraordinary feeling. An instant later, the 9 of them stood on the platform. Qin Wentian spoke, "The 9 experts from the Tenlon Heaven Kingdom, please guide me. As long as they are at the Immortal Foundation realm, you can choose any 9 of them." Qin Wentian issued a challenge to the Tenlon Heaven Kingdom, using the same method as the Tenlon Heaven Kingdom against the Evergreen Kingdom. Before this, the 9 peak-level immortals from the Tenlon Heaven Kingdom suppressed the peak-level immortals from the Evergreen Kingdom. Right now, Qin Wentian still dared to issue a challenge. From this, one could see that he was extremely confident in the 9 people on the platform. Tenlon Jiang waved his hands and a moment later, 9 experts at the same cultivation level as him walked up the platform. Each of them exuded a powerful aura, including the Immortal Foundation expert who was proficient in Sumeru law. The instant these people walked up, an intense battle intent gushed forth from them. These people from the Immortal Qianbian Gate actually dared to declare war on the Tenlon Heaven Kingdom. This time around, the people from the Tenlon Heaven Kingdom who came here were all outstanding elites. In order to erupt with true strength, it's inevitable that there will be casualties during a spar. What does the Tenlon Heaven Kingdom think of this? Qin Wentian spoke again, his cold voice didn't mask his arrogance at all. That's only natural. Tenlon Jiang coldly replied. Qin Wentian actually dared to take the initiative to suggest that there would be casualties during a spar. Qida, there's no need to hold back. Qin Wentian spoke to the platform. As the sound of his voice faded, the 9 of them instantly erupted forth with terrifying might. Terrifying battle intent gushed forth from the 9 of them at the same time. In addition, they moved in different directions and actually separated instead of gathering together, surrounding the entire platform. How arrogant was this battle tactic? Numerous thunderous roars rang out as resplendent battle runes circulated around them. All of them were clad in battle saint armor as the shadow of the divine ape appeared. This. In an instant, the expressions of everyone changed. These 9 people actually all cultivated the same type of power. They should all be from the same mysterious and powerful clan. In that case, could it be that these 9 people all had the same tyrannical combat prowess as the young man who fought earlier on the platform? The 9 experts from the Tenlon Heaven Kingdom once again revolved around the young man who was proficient in Sumeru force. The others would defend while he would attack. Kill. Qida spoke. As the sound of his voice faded, the 9 experts from the Battle Saint tribe all launched their attacks at the same time. Their bodies expanded in size as the divine ape howled in rage, wanting to shatter everything. The experts from the Sky Mist Immortal Empire all released their immortal foundations and frenziedly defended. Rumbling sounds rang out as the sounds of cracking rang out. The entire battle platform was enveloped by the tyrannical might of the attacks. A supremely strong defense surrounded the experts from the Sky Mist Immortal Empire. But as the thunderous rumbling sounds rang out, the spectators were all sweating profusely because of that defense. Pooh! One of the experts from the Tenlon Heaven Kingdom coughed out blood as he was flung through the air. That terrifying attack was too powerful, his defense had no way to block it. At this moment, the young man who was proficient in Sumeru force roared in rage. An incomparably gigantic divine elephant appeared, and with a wave of his hand, particles transformed into the shadow of the divine elephant, wanting to suppress everything. His expression was extremely sharp, wanting to destroy everyone. What a joke! Qin Wentian snorted. Although such an attack was powerful, it was sufficient to deal with the experts from the Tenlon Heaven Kingdom earlier. But now against the 9 experts from the Battle Saint tribe, they still wanted to use such a tactic. What sort of existences were these 9 experts? They were all elites of the Battle Saint tribe and were baptized by the sacred luminance. They were proficient in the Battle Saint arts, and if the 9 of them joined forces, they would definitely be invincible. As expected, the 9 cultivators condensed ancient seals, and gigantic shadows of divine apes appeared in front of them. No attack could break through them. No matter how the divine elephants transformed from Sumeru power attacked, they were unable to shake the gigantic divine ape shadows. Boom! Cheetah took the lead and stepped out. The other 9 experts stepped out at the same time and blasted out with their palms. Numerous golden divine ape palm imprints blasted out, blasting towards their opponents. The defenses of the 9 experts directly crumbled as they coughed out blood from the impact. The gigantic palm imprints continued blasting over, causing screams of misery to ring out as the spectators saw many immortal foundations being destroyed. Boom! In the direction of the Tenlon Heaven Kingdom, many experts stood up. Tenlon Zhang's expression instantly turned extremely heavy as he roared, "Stay your hands. You guys can't afford to lose." Qin Wentian coldly snorted. That expert who was proficient in Sumeru energy unleashed his strongest attack. A moment later, divine elephants covered the entire platform. He pulled the experts beside him and retreated, retracting his aura. Only then did he manage to break through the protective screen of light and escape. He was in an extremely miserable state. However, there were already quite a few experts from the Skymist Immortal Empire who had their immortal foundations crippled. Chapter 11:10. This. The hearts of the spectators trembled when they saw how miserable the 9 elites of the Tenlon Heaven Kingdom were. These 9 people were extremely powerful. Before this, they suppressed the 9 geniuses of the Evergreen Kingdom, and one of them was proficient in the law of Sumeru. Clearly, they were all demon-level geniuses nurtured by the Tenlon Heaven Kingdom. But at this moment, they were directly blasted away by the violent attacks. Several among them had their immortal foundations shattered, becoming cripples. Earlier, if it wasn't for the strongest among them using the law of Sumeru to block the attacks, the 9 of them would most probably be lying on the battle platform. This battle was basically a battle on a completely different level. The disparity between the 2 sides was simply too shocking. Qin Wentian's confidence in them wasn't because he was ignorant. He truly had the strength to back them up. Which tribe are they from exactly? I've never heard of a tribe that could condense a divine ape's immortal foundation and have such terrifying combat prowess. At the very least, there's no such tribe in the eastern regions. Where did the immortal Qianbian Gate recruit them from? The spectators mused silently, but it was impossible for them to guess. The last time the Battle Saint tribe appeared in the immortal realms, it was already the era of ancient Emperor Yi. How many people would still know of this? The gazes of everyone turned to Qin Wentian only to see Qin Wentian's expression was as cold as ever. He then spoke, "Do you believe me now?" Tenlon Jiang only felt his face burning. Before this, he was still arrogant, smacking the faces of the Evergreen Kingdom. Who would have thought that he would be humiliated by an Immortal Foundation character from the immortal Qianbian Gate so quickly? How ridiculous! Chongqing Long Hao and the experts from the Evergreen Kingdom stared at Qin Wentian with complicated expressions. No one was clearer than the nobility of the Evergreen Kingdom Palace on the matter between this fellow and the Evergreen Kingdom. At that time, many nobility characters targeted Qin Wentian, but they would never have imagined that the young man who was surrounded and humiliated by so many nobility characters back then would actually be so unexcelled in the world now, helping the Evergreen Kingdom out of their predicament, accomplishing something that the nobility characters of the Evergreen Kingdom couldn't. Speaking of which, it was somewhat ironic. "You have truly angered me," Sky Mist Jiang coldly spoke. Those who had their immortal foundations crippled were all elites of the royal clan. Each of them had extraordinary statuses and yet, their immortal foundations were actually crippled. Qi De, come down. Qin Wendian spoke. Qi De and the 8 others walked down the platform. After that, Qin Wendian spoke, choose 9 mid-tier immortal foundation experts to go up. Yes. Qi De nodded. Very swiftly, the 9 of them were chosen as they walked up the platform. Prince Skymist, please guide me. 9 mid-tier immortal foundation experts are allowed to go up. Qin Wendian coldly spoke. Staring at the 9 people who stepped up the platform, the experts from the various powers all felt their hearts trembling. Could it be that these 9 people were from the same clan as the previous 9? If they had such combat prowess, most probably none of the powers here would be able to select 9 people who could stand equally against them. Kacha. Tenlon Jiang clenched his fists tightly as a cold intent radiated from him. He stared at Qin Wendian, his eyes gleaming with sharpness akin to swords. Why are the rules of sparring always determined by you? Tenlon Jiang coldly spoke. Qin Wendian laughed mockingly. Earlier, you were so arrogant. Now, you are starting to find excuses. Fine, tell me, how do you want to fight? Fight you. Tenlon Jiang spoke. I've said it before. Your people aren't qualified. Let Tenlon Hai challenge me. Maybe I can consider it. Qin Wendian replied. Are you afraid? Tenlon Jiang mocked. Fine, since you want to challenge me so much, I will agree to it. Why don't you send a 2nd-level Immortal Foundation expert and Sky Mist Hai to challenge me and a 3rd-level Immortal Foundation expert? Wouldn't this be very fair? Qin Wendian replied. You don't dare to accept the challenge and still want to find others to protect you? Tenlon Jiang coldly laughed. The one who was arrogant earlier was you. Now that I've sent 9 people up the platform, the one who doesn't dare to accept the challenge is still you. You want to challenge me? My condition is that Tenlon Hai has to fight. The one who cowers is still you. Qin Wendian's voice was as calm as ever. He turned his gaze to the experts from the Tenlon Heaven Kingdom. Let's fight to our heart's content. If you don't dare to, just scram out of the royal palace. What's with all the nonsense? Staring at Qin Wendian's arrogant attitude, everyone faintly felt that this wasn't a battle between the Evergreen Kingdom and the Tenlon Heaven Kingdom. Instead, it was a battle between the Tenlon Heaven Kingdom and the Immortal Qianbian Gate. But these people from the Immortal Qianbian Gate were truly powerful to the point of causing people to feel trepidation. Tenlon Jiang, before this, you and the Supreme Sword School invited my Evergreen Kingdom for a spar and I didn't reject them. You also arrogantly said that you wouldn't be polite in the future. But now, the Immortal Qianbian Gate has defeated your Tenlon Heaven Kingdom. Hence, you are finding all sorts of reasons to not accept the challenge. Is this the way your Tenlon Heaven Kingdom spars? Chongqing Long how naturally wouldn't miss out on such an opportunity. He wanted to suppress the arrogance of the Tenlon Heaven Kingdom. He was similarly suppressing his anger, but he had nowhere to vent it. If this is the spar, I don't think it's necessary to continue. I have to consider whether to send you off or not, Chongqing Longhao said coldly. The situation seemed to be a little stiff for a while. The Tenlon Heaven Kingdom had wanted to join forces with the Supreme Sword School to suppress the Evergreen Kingdom. Unexpectedly, Qin Wendian appeared and destroyed the situation, stirring up a storm. The leader of the Supreme Sword School looked at Qin Wendian and said, Your Excellency, you are a disciple of the Immortal Qianbian Gate. Why do you want to get involved in this mess? The agreement between the Evergreen Kingdom and the Tenlon Heaven Kingdom must be fulfilled. If you want to get involved, has the Immortal Qianbian Gate thought about it clearly? I have no intention of getting involved. I don't care about the grudges between the Tenlon Heaven Kingdom and the Evergreen Kingdom. But don't use the so-called agreement to threaten the princess to marry Tian Lan. Otherwise, it will be related to me, Qin Wendian said. Why would it be related to you? The expert of the Supreme Sword School asked. Because the princess of the Evergreen Kingdom, Qing'er, is my girlfriend. Qin Wentian stared at the other party, his eyes filled with determination. As long as Qing'er was involved in this storm, it would be impossible for him, Qin Wentian, to stand on the sidelines. He would never allow the Tenlon Heaven Kingdom to threaten Qing'er to marry Tianlon with the so-called agreement. What a joke! Princess Qing'er is engaged to the royal family of the Tenlon Heaven Kingdom. You say that she is your girlfriend? I have never heard of such a ridiculous thing. Evergreen Kingdom, do you admit it? Tenlon Jiang said sarcastically. What he said is naturally true. A melodious voice abruptly rang out. The eyes of everyone flickered as they inclined their heads and stared at the air. After that, energy fluctuations could be felt as a group of experts suddenly appeared. The woman in the lead was as cold as a snow lotus, exuding an incomparable beauty. She was as pure as ice and as pure as jade, and was so soul-stirring. What a beautiful woman! Is this the Princess Qing'er of the Evergreen Kingdom? Everyone mused, immediately guessing who she was. This beautiful woman slowly walked out, but she didn't walk in the direction of Changqing Longhao. Instead, she walked in the direction of Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian stood up. It has been many years since they last met and he missed Qing'er very much. Right now, Qing'er was already a second-level Immortal Foundation expert and was the same as him. She radiated an immortal qi and was even more beautiful than before. Her beauty was transcendent, transcendent and transcendent. Qing'er walked to the front of Qin Wentian. Her beautiful eyes were still cold, but in the depths of her eyes, Qin Wentian could sense her emotions. Stretching out his hand, Qin Wentian pulled Qing'er's dainty hand over. Qing'er's hand was soft and gentle, yet cold. She didn't move, allowing Qin Wentian to hold her hand in front of the eyes of everyone. After that, she walked to the side of Qin Wentian and turned around. The two of them stood side by side, resembling the most perfect immortal couple. She is my woman, this naturally has something to do with me. Qin Wentian domineeringly spoke. At this moment, even the people of the Evergreen Kingdom pretended as though they didn't see anything. It was as though they tacitly acknowledged the relationship between Qin Wentian and Qing'er. Such a situation was something that even Qin Wentian himself didn't expect. Staring at the two of them holding hands, how could anyone still not understand why Qin Wentian would go berserk and act so domineeringly against the Tenlon Heaven Kingdom? Soaring to the heavens for the sake of a beauty. Bang! Tenlon Jiang slammed out with his palm, shattering the table in front of him. His long robes fluttered even though there was no wind, exuding a cold intent. With the contract as proof, the Evergreen Kingdom actually allowed the princess to be with another person. This is really ridiculous. Are you not afraid of damaging the princess's reputation? Tenlon Jiang said coldly, no matter what the relationship between the princess and this person is, I hope that the Evergreen Kingdom will properly handle this matter. I will ask all the forces to launch the Immortal Realm verdict. Princess Qing'er must join my Tenlon Heaven Kingdom. Using a useless contract to talk. The so-called Immortal Realm verdict is even more ridiculous. In the future, my Immortal Qianbian Gate and the Evergreen Kingdom will launch the Immortal Realm verdict and ask the Tenlon Heaven Kingdom to cede its territory. Will your Tenlon Heaven Kingdom also abide by it? Qin Wentian saw that Tenlon Jiang still wasn't willing to give up. He coldly spoke, today, on the Evergreen Kingdom Palace platform, as long as you, Tenlon Jiang, send someone up, I will accept all challenges until your Tenlon Heaven Kingdom scram out of the royal palace. Ha ha ha, Qin Wentian, you are the most arrogant Immortal Foundation expert I've ever seen. Tenlon Jiang laughed uproariously. Everything before him shattered. He stared at Qin Wentian, since things have already reached this stage, and the Evergreen Kingdom is unwilling to acknowledge the contract, there's no need for us to continue sparring. Since you said that you will accept all challenges from my Tenlon Heaven Kingdom, I only need a single battle. You can fight me personally. If you don't dare to, stop talking nonsense. Tenlon Jiang knew that the experts from the Battle Saint tribe around Qin Wentian were all extremely powerful. If they continued sparring, he wouldn't gain any advantage. Hence, he only targeted Qin Wentian. Just a single battle. Qin Wentian released Qing'er's hand and smiled at her. "I'll be right back." Emichum, Qing'er nodded lightly. After which, Qin Wentian slowly walked out, moving towards the battle platform. After that, Qin Wentian turned his gaze to Tenlan Jiang. "Since you want me to fight so badly, I will grant you your wish. It's just that I'm afraid you won't be able to accept the ending. You can casually choose people from the lower 3 levels of Immortal Foundation?" Tenlan Jiang asked. Despicable. Changqing Long Hao coldly spoke. Since it was a solo battle, he would naturally choose someone at the same cultivation level as Qin Wentian, the 2nd level of Immortal Foundation. But since Tenlan Jiang intentionally said the lower 3 levels of Immortal Foundation, this meant that the 3rd level of Immortal Foundation was included. Given how arrogant Qin Wentian was, he believed that Qin Wentian would agree. In that case, Qin Wentian would definitely die here. "Up to you." As expected, Qin Wentian spat out 2 words. Just like what Sky Mist Jiang had expected, a cold smile could be seen flickering in his eyes. The gaze he used to look at Qin Wentian was as though he was looking at a dead man. Chapter 11:11. Tenlan Zhu. Tianlan Jiang called out a name, and a young man walked out from behind him. This person's eyebrows were very thin, but they were clearly sharp. His gaze was very thin, like a sharp sword. "You can go first." Tenlan Jiang spoke. Tenlan Zhu walked up the platform and stood before Qin Wentian. "When sparring, you should give it your all. Life and death don't matter." Tenlan Jiang spoke again. Right now, their hostility was no longer masked. Everyone knew that Tenlan Jiang wanted Qin Wentian to die. Qin Wentian's existence broke Tenlan Jiang's suppression of the Evergreen Kingdom. If it wasn't for Qin Wentian, his Tenlan Heaven Kingdom would have caused some of the nobility members of the Evergreen Kingdom to die in the Evergreen Kingdom's royal palace, teaching them a deep lesson and crushing the morale of the Evergreen Kingdom. However, the appearance of Qin Wentian caused his Tenlan Heaven Kingdom to be suppressed instead. This was something Tenlan Jiang couldn't tolerate. In addition, since those royal members had their immortal foundations crippled, Qin Wentian had to die no matter what. "Please guide me." Qin Wentian had his hands behind his back as he stared at Tenlan Zhu, who walked up the platform. His opponent's aura gushed forth as the shadow of a divine elephant appeared. Many of the core members of the royal clan of the Tenlan Heaven Kingdom had condensed their immortal foundations in the form of divine elephants. This divine elephant's immortal foundation contained a terrifying immortal glow, exuding a fearsome immortal might. The entire space changed color as the sky was dyed red, resembling the color of hell. The shadow of the divine elephant seemed to have stepped out from the blood-colored flames of hell, resembling a divine elephant king of lava, exuding a terrifying heat as well as an overwhelming might. Everyone inclined their heads and stared at the sky above the battle platform. The terrifying Hell Devil Mammoth contained an unfathomable might. Most probably, Tenlan Zhu's immortal foundation has already been condensed into a king-grade immortal foundation. That immortal foundation seemed to be filled to the brim, exuding resplendent immortal light. Qin Wentian's aura gushed forth as halos revolved around him. His immortal foundation shimmered with immortal light, transforming into the shadow of a divine elephant. Boom! Tenlan Zhu took a step forward, and suddenly, the shadow of the divine elephant in the air attacked Qin Wentian. However, an elephant trumpeting sound came from Qin Wentian, and his incarnation was enveloped by the shadow of the divine elephant of hell. No matter how the huge divine elephant of hell attacked him, he remained motionless. He is also proficient in the power of divine elephants. The eyes of the spectators flashed. The two of them were proficient in the same power. Qin Wentian stepped out, landing on the battle platform. With a thunderous boom, the entire space trembled. Tenlan Zhu's heart pounded as well. His immortal foundation actually trembled slightly, as though it was being enveloped by a formless might. Rumble. Qin Wentian continued stepping out. In an instant, Tenlan Zhu felt his immortal foundation trembling unceasingly. His heart pounded violently as his countenance changed. With a loud roar, the hell-like divine elephant of hell congregated around him, exuding a fearsome destructive might. But at this moment, Qin Wentian's silhouette descended. He blasted out with his palms, and the divine elephant of destruction let out a heaven-shaking trumpeting sound, wanting to suppress everything. At the same time, Sky Mist Zhu also unleashed his ultimate attack. Both of their attacks collided against each other. The hell-like divine elephant of magma and the divine elephant of annihilation and suppression collided against each other, causing heavy rumbling sounds to echo out in the air. Violent gusts of wind ravaged the platform as the two tyrannical attacks unceasingly clashed against each other. At the same time, Qin Wentian continued advancing forward, as though he was trampling on Sky Mist Zhu's heart. Tenlan Zhu only saw Qin Wentian walking towards him, his entire body shrouded in destructive light. A gigantic palm imprint blasted out, but Tenlan Zhu's silhouette flickered as he retreated, only to see numerous great rocks shooting out with lightning speed. These great rocks exuded a baleful aura, and their wings were like sharp swords that could slash apart everything. There was simply no way to evade. Tenlan Zhu roared, his body transformed into a lava giant. The shadow of the divine elephant was faintly discernible as the powerful great rocks slammed into him. However, they had no way to shake his foundation. And at this moment, Qin Wentian stepped out once more, causing his heart to pound violently as his immortal foundation to tremble. His palm shone with boundless light, resembling the palm of a fearsome divinity, slamming down onto Tenlan Zhu's body. With a cracking sound, the congealed flames on Tenlan Zhu's body fell to the ground. Terror was written all over his face, and under his sharp brows, his eyes were filled with terror as he stared at Qin Wentian. Bang! With a thunderous boom, all the energy on Sky Mist Zhu's body completely disintegrated. His body was flung through the air as he coughed out fresh blood. In an instant, he looked incomparably haggard. His immortal foundation was already shattered and he laid limply on the ground, becoming a cripple. The hearts of everyone trembled. Qin Wentian used absolute dominance to suppress Tenlan Zhu. The combat prowess of the two of them weren't on the same level. Tenlan Zhang's expression was extremely ugly to behold. Tenlan Zhu's strength was already considered one of the strongest among them and his cultivation base was even higher compared to Qin Wentian. He initially hoped that Tenlan Zhu would be able to kill Qin Wentian, but he didn't expect that Tenlan Zhu would be crippled while Qin Wentian was completely unharmed. Is this the result you wanted? Qin Wentian slowly turned and stared at Tenlan Jiang below the platform. I've said it before. Your subordinate isn't qualified to challenge me. Gotcha. Tenlan Jiang clenched his fists tightly. Today, in the confrontation against Qin Wentian, his Tenlan Heaven Kingdom could be said to have lost all face. They couldn't even win a single battle. They were completely defeated. You are very good. Tenlan Jiang coldly spoke. However, even if you won, so what? This doesn't mean anything. The victory in the sparring can't stop the flow of events. With the contract in place, the princess of the Evergreen Kingdom will definitely marry into my Tenlan Heaven Kingdom. Qin Wentian stared at Tenlan Jiang, only to see him pointing his finger at Tenlan Hai. A trash like him is also qualified. Qing'er is my girlfriend. No one can force her future. Is that so? Tenlan Jiang's eyes flashed with killing intent, he didn't conceal it at all. He stared at Qin Wentian and flicked his sleeves. The adjudication of the immortal realms is something that must be carried out. If the Evergreen Kingdom doesn't abide by the rules, it would be equivalent to declaring war against the adjudication powers. I truly want to see if the Evergreen Kingdom would choose to abide by the rules and marry their princess to the immortal realms, or would they choose to destroy the immortal realms? You, just wait and see. After speaking, Tenlan Jiang turned and stepped out. Today, Qin Wentian had disrupted everything. There was no meaning for him to stay any longer. This junior came here with sincerity, yet the Evergreen Kingdom refused to abide by the agreement. Senior Changqing the Great is also unwilling to meet with me personally. In that case, I can only rely on the adjudication of the immortal realms. Tenlon Jiang spoke in a clear voice. Terrifying sound waves reverberated through the air, spreading to every corner of the immortal realms. The people of the Tenlon Heaven Kingdom all followed Tenlon Jiang and departed. Today, they came here to suppress the Evergreen Kingdom, yet they didn't expect that they would be humiliated by Qin Wendian instead. Farewell. The people from the Paragon Sword sect all stood up and bid their farewells. Many people from the Celestial Palace and Taihua Empire turned their gazes to Qin Wendian, as a look of deep meaning appeared on their faces. Today, Qin Wendian was known to all the major powers of the eastern regions. A young man at the second level of Immortal Foundation actually dared to challenge the Tenlon Heaven Kingdom. In addition, he even held the hand of the daughter of Changqing the Great, Princess Qing'er, denying the agreement the Tenlon Heaven Kingdom had with them. Farewell. The experts of the various powers respectively stood up and bid farewell. Not too long after, most of the experts had departed. Only those from the Evergreen Kingdom and the Immortal Qianbian Gate remained. Qin Wendian walked down the platform and returned to the side of Qing'er. He was still holding on to Qing'er's hand as the two of them turned their gazes to the nobility of Changqing Longhao. The other party was also looking at them, and the atmosphere was somewhat strange. After all, the matter between Qin Wendian and Qing'er was something that the people of the Evergreen Kingdom felt disdain for. They even tried to make things difficult for Qin Wendian. But the matter today caused their impression of Qin Wendian to change greatly. Hence, the atmosphere was somewhat strange. Everyone, please stay in the palace for the time being. Changqing Longhao was silent for a moment. Then, he turned around and left. His words seemed to have a deeper meaning, but he did not say anything more. The people of nobility took a deep look at Qin Wendian and Qing'er, then left. Princess Changping walked towards Qin Wendian. She looked at the two people in front of her and said with a smile, "You two came at the right time." "I heard about what happened here from Master," Qing'er said crisply. Princess Changping nodded and looked at Qin Wendian. "What about you? Did you come for Qing'er?" "Yes, I heard about what happened here from the Immortal Qianbian Gate, so I came here to have a look. I did not expect to meet the people of the Tenlon Heaven Kingdom who came here to make trouble," Qin Wendian said. "Not bad. Seems like the two of you have made some progress." Princess Changping had a smile on her face. What happened today was obviously a good thing for Qin Wendian and Qing'er. It was extremely beneficial for them to be together. "Wendian, you should temporarily stay in my residence. Right now, the hatred of the Tenlon Heaven Kingdom towards you has already seeped into their bones. I wonder what methods they would use." Okay. Qin Wendian naturally wouldn't reject the opportunity to be together with Qing'er. The two of them had not seen each other for so many years, it was rare for them to have a reunion. The people of the Immortal Qianbian Gate followed Princess Changping to her residence. Princess Changping and the Scarlet Eye Marquis entertained them. After that, Qin Wendian and Qing'er reunited in the courtyard that he used to stay in. The two of them pulled each other to the lakeside and sat down. Although they had many things to say, they didn't know what to say. Qin Wendian's gaze was fixed on the cold expression of Qing'er. Although Qing'er pretended not to see it, her beautiful eyes would occasionally blink as she asked, "What are you looking at?" "Qing'er, you have become even more beautiful. I really want to kiss you." Qin Wendian smiled. Qing'er didn't look at him, she only stared ahead and didn't say anything. Qin Wendian stared at the quiet beauty as he moved his head forward. He could feel Qing'er tightly holding onto his hand, yet she still didn't reject him. However, his heart was filled with panic. Staring at that cold and beautiful countenance, Qin Wendian gently kissed Qing'er. On her fair cheeks, a soul-stirring blush actually appeared. She was simply so beautiful that it was suffocating. Chapter 11-12. Qin Wendian retracted his head, admiring her beauty. Qing'er's face was flushed red, causing one to feel like kissing her again. A pure and cold goddess, when the red glow of the setting sun shone on her jade-like countenance, her beauty was truly astonishing. Such temptation was irresistible. Qin Wendian shifted his body, leaning against Qing'er. He stretched out his hand and wrapped it around Qing'er's slender waist. That willowy waist was so soft and supple that it seemed as though there were no bones in it. Qin Wentian hugged her. Qing'er's body also moved closer to Qin Wentian's. Her head rested on Qin Wentian's shoulder. Staring at that supreme beauty right before his eyes, Qin Wentian's heart was filled with happiness. He just quietly held Qing'er in his arms, enjoying this rare moment of peace. The night was quiet. Qin Wentian was quietly cultivating. Astral light cascaded down from the sky as immortal light circulated around him. His body seemed to be translucent, and the glow of his immortal foundation could be faintly seen. However, at this moment, the immortal light around Qin Wentian dissipated. His eyes abruptly opened as he felt a mysterious energy boring down on him, causing him to furrow his brows. He could faintly sense that there was a mysterious energy calling out to him. With a flash, Qin Wentian soared up into the air, following that feeling. Not too long later, he exited Princess Changping's residence and sped through the royal palace of the Immortal Empire. That mysterious feeling continued to exist, and it wasn't too far away. As he sped through the air, he came to a sparkling astral lake. This astral lake seemed to reflect the countless constellations in the sky, incomparably resplendent. Beside the astral lake, a slender figure quietly stood there, as though he had always been here, coexisting with the darkness of the night. The long hair of this person shone with a silvery white light, exuding an ethereal aura. Qin Wentian could sense that the mysterious energy originated from here. Qin Wentian greets you, Senior. Did you guide me to this place? Qin Wentian bowed slightly to that silhouette. That silhouette slowly turned around as his gaze landed on Qin Wentian. When Qin Wentian's eyes met with the other parties, he only felt as though he saw a vast expanse of stars, boundless and deep. At this moment, Qin Wentian felt as though he was in an endless starry sky, as though he was transparent. With a single glance, the other party could see through him. It was as though his entire being was inside the other party's eyes. Those eyes were like the starry world he was in. This instant felt like a very, very long time. When she withdrew her gaze, Qin Wentian finally felt his entire body relax, and he actually felt as if he was in a dream. So strong. Qin Wentian silently mused. The feeling this person gave him was truly unfathomable. He had met many immortal kings before, and even immortal emperors. He had no way to sense the exact cultivation base of this person, but he knew that this person was definitely stronger than the Deep Flame Immortal King or the Nightmare Immortal King. After all, those two had truly unleashed their auras on him before. In the royal palace of the Evergreen Kingdom, the number of people who had such a cultivation base could be counted on one's fingers. Nothing much, I just want to meet you. This voice contained an ethereal aura, as though it wasn't real. Qin Wentian felt somewhat taken aback. Such a powerful character actually just wanted to meet with him? Why was this so? He felt somewhat puzzled. In addition, given the cultivation base of this person, a single sweep of his immortal sense should be able to cover the entire royal palace. Naturally, this person must have seen him before. And what this person said should be referring to him personally. Could this person be Qing'er's father, the master of the Evergreen Kingdom, Changqing the Great? Senior. Qin Wentian wanted to speak, yet he only saw the other party waving his hands lightly. Cultivate well, don't forget your heart. You are a person with great luck. Great luck. Qin Wentian mumbled. Go on. The misty eyes of the other party flashed with a smile. Qin Wentian didn't expect that the other party would guide him here just to say a single sentence. This caused him to be speechless, but he could sense that the other party had no ill intentions. For such an expert to want to meet with him, it could be considered an honor. To characters of this level, even if ordinary people stood before them, they wouldn't even bother to glance at them. Junior will take my leave. Qin Wentian spoke. After that, he turned and departed, feeling somewhat bewildered in his heart. After he left, the astral lake abruptly churned and churned unceasingly. Qin Wentian's silhouette was reflected within the astral lake as a beam of astral light shot up into the air. The misty figure raised his head and followed the beam of light into the void. All the stars in the sky seemed to be evolving in his eyes, like a chessboard. The starry chessboard grew brighter and brighter until the light of a star rose to the peak and then exploded. Cough, cough. The figure in white beside the starry lake coughed, and a drop of blood actually came out. However, he acted as if he didn't see it. With a wave of his hand, the starry lake turned into endless starlight and flowed into his body. Father. From afar, a figure stepped forward. This figure was very beautiful. She looked at the person in front of her and asked, "Father, are you injured?" "Naturally, I have to pay a price to peek at the rules of the heavenly path. It's a pity that my cultivation is still too shallow." The misty figure shook his head lightly. He actually thought that his cultivation was still too shallow. He wondered how the people outside would feel if they knew about this. "Did you see anything?" the beautiful woman asked in a low voice. The path of cultivation is filled with ups and downs, but one's fate is higher than the heavens. I can't see through the fate of an ancient emperor. The misty figure faintly spoke. He stood with his hands clasped behind his back and slowly walked away, leaving behind the beautiful woman who was in a daze. Fate higher than the heavens? The fate of an ancient emperor? Up until now, out of all the people her father had ever seen, this was the only person with such a fate. The news of what happened in the Evergreen Kingdom Palace soon circulated around the royal capital of the Evergreen Kingdom, shocking countless people. The Tenlon Heaven Kingdom was domineering and tyrannical, heading to the royal palace of the Evergreen Kingdom to suppress the Evergreen Kingdom. Not only that, the Supreme Sword School also participated in it, suppressing the experts of the Evergreen Kingdom to the point where the nobility of the Evergreen Kingdom was unable to breathe. What was even more shocking was that it was actually a disciple of the immortal Qianbian Gate, Qin Wentian, who stood out and led the members of the immortal Qianbian Gate to suppress the experts of the Tenlon Heaven Kingdom. Many years ago, during the once-a-100-year immortal banquet held by the Dongshengshan Gate, Qin Wentian crushed all the geniuses and obtained the position of the top ranker. However, he rejected the offer to take the Emperor of Qianbian as his master. It was precisely on that day that the Eastern Sage 13 prefectures were divided. What was even more shocking was that the disciple of the immortal Qianbian Gate, Qin Wentian, stood out and led the members of the immortal Qianbian Gate to suppress the experts of the Tenlon Heaven Kingdom. Many years ago, during the once-a-100-year immortal banquet held by the Dongshengshan Gate, Qin Wentian crushed all the geniuses and obtained the position of the top ranker. However, he refused to take the Emperor of Qianbian as his master. It was precisely that day when the Eastern Sage 13 prefectures were divided. According to the rumors, this person's talent was outstanding and there was no one in the Dongshengshan Gate who could stand against him at the same level. And the grudge between him and the Dongsheng Heaven Emperor was because he had been humiliated by the Dongsheng Heaven Emperor before. All sorts of rumors about Qin Wentian gradually increased. In addition to his relationship with Princess Qing, he instantly became a famous character in the royal capital of the Evergreen Kingdom. However, very quickly, a piece of news suppressed Qin Wentian's limelight. The Tenlon Heaven Kingdom invited the major powers of the eastern regions to participate in the adjudication. The Evergreen Kingdom didn't abide by the agreement and broke the promise they made to the Tenlon Heaven Kingdom back then. Hence, the Evergreen Kingdom requested the major powers to adjudicate the matter. For the sake of fairness, the location of the adjudication was decided to be the royal capital of the Evergreen Kingdom. Very quickly, news circulated that Zidi, the Supreme Sword School and even the Celestial Palace would support the Tenlon Heaven Kingdom. They would adjudicate that the Evergreen Kingdom would abide by the terms of the agreement and allow the most outstanding princess of the Evergreen Kingdom to marry into the Tenlon Heaven Kingdom. This news circulated to the major powers of the eastern regions. The Taihua Empire and the Beast God sect didn't express their stance. The major powers of the eastern regions all headed towards the royal capital of the Evergreen Kingdom. This matter caused an uproar in the royal capital of the Evergreen Immortal Empire, causing a storm of commotion. In the royal capital of the Evergreen Kingdom, the Tenlon Heaven Kingdom invited the major powers to initiate the adjudication. This was simply a slap to the face of the Evergreen Kingdom. In the royal palace of the evergreen immortal empire, a voice rang out. Right now, it was no longer the era of ancient emperors. The experts of the immortal realms were all rising up, and there wasn't a single power that could unify the eastern regions. Who would have the qualifications to judge the matters of other powers? No matter what the outcome of the adjudication was, the Evergreen Kingdom wouldn't care. The attitudes of both parties were very obvious, each insisting on their own words. However, the Tenlon Heaven Kingdom didn't care at all. During these days, Qin Wentian had been cultivating in the royal palace of the Evergreen Kingdom, staying together with Qing. He didn't feel the flow of time. With regards to the adjudication being initiated by the Tenlon Heaven Kingdom, he was incomparably furious in his heart. However, he was also faintly worried. How would the Evergreen Kingdom be able to handle this storm? Today, in a certain location in the royal capital of the Evergreen Kingdom, the Tenlon Heaven Kingdom held a banquet, inviting the major powers of the various powers. The envoys of Zidi, the people from the Supreme Sword School, and the people from the Celestial Palace all arrived. Each of them occupied a seat, but the seat opposite them was empty. That seat was reserved for the Evergreen Kingdom. However, no one from the Evergreen Kingdom came. Seems like the Evergreen Kingdom knows that they will definitely lose this adjudication. Hence, they didn't appear. My Tenlon Heaven Kingdom has the support of the various major powers. Even if the Evergreen Kingdom didn't appear, we wouldn't be able to evade the adjudication. According to the contract, my Tenlon Heaven Kingdom will choose a good date to head to the Evergreen Kingdom and welcome Princess Qing, and Princess Liuli to the Heavenly Mist Kingdom. Tenlon Jiang turned his gaze to everyone as he spoke. The adjudication this time was decided by the major powers of the eastern regions. If the Evergreen Kingdom still doesn't comply, we would be making an enemy out of all the major powers. His voice rang through the air, spreading throughout the entire royal capital of the Evergreen Kingdom, all the way to the royal palace of the Evergreen Kingdom. Within the royal palace of the Evergreen Kingdom, the atmosphere was somewhat stifling. The Tenlon Heaven Kingdom's momentum was at its peak, joining forces with the other major powers, wanting to oppress them. Chapter 11-13. In the residence of Princess Changping, the Scarlet Eye Marquis, Qin Wentian, Qing and the rest stood in the manor. They stared at the sky, only to see a beam of light shooting towards the direction of the Emperor Palace. That was the verdict sent by the Tenlon Heaven Kingdom. What intolerable bullying, to actually send the verdict to the Emperor Palace. The countenance of the Scarlet Eye Marquis was ice cold. What kind of trash is Tenlon High? How dare he say that he wants the princess of our empire to marry him? This is simply preposterous. The drunkard has an ulterior motive. The Tenlon Heaven Kingdom clearly knows that our empire will never agree to this. They are intentionally targeting us. The beautiful eyes of Princess Changping flickered with a cold light. I wonder how the Evergreen Kingdom will handle this. The Scarlet Eye Marquis stared in the direction of the Emperor Palace. After the turmoil in the Evergreen Kingdom, their strength was weakened. The Tenlon Heaven Kingdom was truly good at grasping the opportunity. I don't believe that the Tenlon Heaven Kingdom would dare to declare war against our empire. The daughter of Princess Changping, Ting spoke in an unhappy tone. Who knows? Our Evergreen Kingdom is also not willing to declare war unless we have no other choice. The Scarlet Eye Marquis coldly spoke. At this moment, the nobility residences in the Evergreen Kingdom couldn't remain calm. At this moment, the conflicts between the various nobility residences were all gone. They were now united against a common enemy. They stared in the direction of the Emperor Palace, and many of the nobility residences even walked out, wanting to meet with the Evergreen Emperor. However, there was no news from the Emperor Palace. Nobody knew what the Evergreen Emperor was thinking. Nobody knew that at this moment, in an illusory space within the Evergreen Kingdom's Emperor Palace, Changqing the Great was currently playing chess with a dignified-looking middle-aged expert. Junior brother Changqing, if this brat plays, you will die. How do you plan to resolve this? The dignified-looking expert placed a chess piece down. He actually referred to Changqing the Great as his junior brother. Senior brother, each and every step you take, encircling me. I have no choice but to fight to the death. The Chongqing the Great said calmly. He placed his chess piece and destroyed half of his kingdom. However, his opponents suffered a great loss as well. The dignified middle-aged man raised his head to look at Chongqing the Great and said with a smile, Junior brother, you and I are both from the Tiandao Sacred Academy. Why are you so stubborn? There is obviously a better way. Why do you insist on doing this? As he spoke, the middle-aged man waved his hand, and the chessboard returned to its previous position. He took the piece that the Chongqing the Great had placed, and placed it in another position. The placement of the piece was a compromise, and the situation was as vast as the sky and the sea. Senior brother, what do you want? Chongqing the Great asked calmly. I have several descendants with outstanding talent. In the future, they might even be able to inherit my legacy. Junior brother, your beloved daughter, Qing has extraordinary talent. With the guidance of both you and matriarch Ji, why don't junior brother help her achieve her goal and allow the two of you to become a couple? That way, this situation would be easily resolved. Qing's personality is similar to mine. No one can force her to do things she doesn't want to do. As her father, I naturally wouldn't be willing to do so as well. In any case, I'm sure senior brother has other plans, right? Chongqing the Great calmly replied. Back then, I asked Dao Long to pay a visit. Junior brother, you didn't give me any face at all. That dignified-looking expert continued. So it turned out that he was none other than a peak-level expert from the eastern regions, Zidi. In the outside world, only a few people knew that they were from the same sect, and referred to each other as fellow apprentice brothers. Senior brother, you are making things difficult for me. Although I'm not acquainted with that little fellow, he is after all a friend of Qing and came to my empire as a guest. If I hand him over to nephew Dao Long, how would others view me? Chongqing the Great calmly spoke. Junior brother is right. Zidi smiled. But what about now? Zidi stared at the chessboard. Chongqing the Great slowly inclined his head, staring at Zidi only to hear Zidi calmly speaking, when I do things, I'm never fickle. It was so in the past, now, and in the future, it will be the same. Since this is the case, junior brother, I'll bid my farewell then. Zidi smiled. After that, his body turned illusory as he directly vanished from sight. Nobody knew of the conversation between Chongqing the Great and Zidi. Regardless of the people from the Evergreen Kingdom or the Tenlon Heaven Kingdom, they had no idea that just now, a single decision by Chongqing the Great could affect the entire situation. Outside the royal palace, in the royal capital, more and more experts gathered. In fact, there were even rumors that immortal emperors from the Tenlon Heaven Kingdom had arrived, preparing to welcome Princess Qing'er and Princess Liuli back to Sky Mist. For a period of time, the royal palace was in a state of panic, as though a storm was about to erupt. Every day, there would be voices from the Tenlon Heaven Kingdom, asking the Evergreen Kingdom to abide by the ruling of the immortal realms, and to abide by the agreement of the past. But in the royal palace of the Evergreen Kingdom, the voices were saying that the ruling of the immortal realms was nothing more than a joke. Wanting to use the rules of the ancient era to control the matters of the Evergreen Kingdom was simply despicable. Both sides had their own opinions. The people in the royal palace were all speculating that if the Evergreen Kingdom didn't agree, would the Tenlon Heaven Kingdom really start a war? Countless pieces of news flew into the royal capital of the Evergreen Immortal Empire. In fact, there were even rumors saying that the Sky Mist Immortal Empire had already sent out their armies to attack the Evergreen Immortal Empire. Today, the Tenlon Heaven Kingdom gave a deadline. 1 month later, they would bring their men to the royal palace of the Evergreen Kingdom to receive the princess. If the Evergreen Kingdom continued to ignore the ruling of the immortal realms, the various major powers would conduct a true judgment on the Evergreen Kingdom. The atmosphere in the royal palace was extremely stifling. Everyone's nerves were stretched taut. The Tenlon Heaven Kingdom was simply too shameless. Did they really dare to start a war of the immortal realms? Right now, the confidence of the Evergreen Kingdom's nobility was starting to waver. Right now, the Tenlon Heaven Kingdom had already joined forces with the experts of the various powers, and there was a possibility that they would launch an attack on the Evergreen Kingdom. There was only 1 month left. Many people sought an audience with the Evergreen Emperor. However, the Evergreen Emperor refused to see anyone. Nobody knew what he was thinking. Qing was under great pressure. She had always been in Princess Changping's residence. Qin Wentian held on to Qing's hand as he spoke. "Don't worry, the Evergreen Emperor will definitely not hand you over." "I know," Qing replied. She wasn't worried that her father would hand her over to the Tenlon Heaven Kingdom. It was just that if the Tenlon Heaven Kingdom really launched an attack on the Evergreen Kingdom, the consequences would be extremely terrifying. At this moment, a voice drifted over from behind the two of them, causing Qin Wentian to start. He actually didn't sense it at all when someone appeared beside him. He abruptly turned and saw an extraordinary silhouette. This person casually stood there, as though he was one with the heavens and earth. Every step he took seemed to be one with the earth. Qing also had a look of surprise on her face when she saw the person who came. She glanced at Qin Wentian who was beside her, only to see her stretching out her hand and lightly holding onto Qin Wentian's hand. This caused a wave of warmth to surge in Qin Wentian's heart. At this moment, he naturally knew who this person was. "Junior Qin Wentian pays my respects to the Evergreen Great Emperor." Qin Wentian bowed slightly. The person in front of him should be none other than the supreme existence of the Evergreen Kingdom, Changqing the Great. Changqing the Great's countenance didn't fluctuate at all. He walked to the lakeside and stood with his hands clasped behind his back, as though he was quietly admiring the scenery here. Qin Wentian, born in a particle world, in the Sky Harmony city of the Chu country of Grand Xia. His foster father, Qin Chuan, later became the monarch of Grand Xia and joined the Battle Sword sect. After that, he befriended the Medicine Sovereign and fought against the hegemon of this particle world, the Royal Sacred Lord. Changqing the Great stared ahead. There were no ripples on the surface of the lake, but Qin Wentian's heart trembled slightly. The Evergreen Immortal Emperor seemed to be very clear about everything about him. However, he soon calmed his heart. How could the Changqing the Great not pay attention to his daughter? Very long ago, the Changqing the Great had already ordered his men to look for Qing. At that time, Qing had always been with him. With regards to everything about him, how could the Changqing the Great not know everything about him? In the immortal realms, other than Qing, most probably only the Changqing the Great knew the most about him. After you entered the immortal realms, it's unknown when you befriended the Emperor of Qianbian and headed to the Dongshengshan Gate to participate in the immortal banquet. You obtained the top position but rejected the offer to take him as your master. Hence, you were taken away by the Emperor of Qianbian and others assumed that you were the disciple of the Emperor of Qianbian. You obtained the top position in the Immortal Ascension rankings and obtained Ancient Emperor Yi's secret art, God's Hand, defeating Zi Daoyang. In the City of Ancient Emperors, you befriended the Holy Maiden of the Namhuang clan, Namhuang Yunshi. After that, you accepted the invitation of Namhuang Yunshi and headed to the Namhuang clan to aid her in seizing the position of the Holy Maiden. In order to repay you, the Namhuang clan told you that the location of the inheritance of God's Hand is located in the God Hand Mountain Manor of Emperor Yu. You headed there and entered the ancient mountain. After that, you successfully cultivated God's Hand and obtained Ancient Emperor Yi's inheritance. Changqing the Great slowly spoke, recounting his experiences from when he was born in the Sky Harmony City until now. Other than those secrets that Changqing the Great didn't know, most probably, Changqing the Great knew everything about him like the back of his hand. Qin Wentian and Qing stared at the back view of Changqing the Great. Qing was still tightly holding on to Qin Wentian's hand, as though she was giving strength to Qin Wentian. It was as though she was telling him that no matter what, she would stand together with him. Do you want to marry Qing? Only to see Changqing the Great slowly turning around, his gaze landing on Qin Wentian. Under that imposing gaze, Qin Wentian felt a stifling pressure boring down on him. It was as though if he were to say anything wrong, the consequences would be extremely dire. I do. Qin Wentian stared at Changqing the Great as he spat out a word. An even stronger pressure bore down on him, causing his entire body to perspire. When Qing saw this scene, she took a step forward, standing in front of Qin Wentian. Her cold eyes stubbornly stared at Changqing the Great, as though she was silently resisting. Changqing the Great stared at that stubborn gaze as he sighed in his heart. He then turned to Qin Wentian, making my daughter do this for you, I really want to kill you. However, as the sound of his voice faded, the pressure from Qin Wentian abruptly vanished. Evidently, Changqing the Great didn't have any killing intent towards him. Chapter 11:14. Qing stared at Changqing the Great, her cold eyes were filled with unhappiness. Changqing the Great stared at her. Qing, do you know? Even father is jealous of this bastard. Tell me, should I kill him or not? Qing didn't say anything, she silently shook her head. Changqing the Great spoke, if I kill him, I'm afraid you wouldn't even acknowledge me as your father. As he spoke, his gaze landed on Qin Wentian once more as he continued, you want to marry Qing, Your current strength is far from enough. You are too weak, so weak that even an immortal king could easily crush you to death. You have also seen the situation here, they even dared to oppress the Evergreen Kingdom, let alone a single person. If you want to protect a single person, sometimes, you have to stand at the peak of the immortal realms. With a single word from you, no one in the world would dare to disobey. But once you are enraged, everyone in the world would have to prostrate themselves before you. Qin Wentian's heart trembled. He spoke in a low voice, only those ancient emperors who once stood at the peak of the immortal realms would be able to do this. That's right. Even for me, there were people I couldn't protect, let alone you. If it wasn't for some people not killing you because they cared about face, you wouldn't have survived until now. Do you understand? Changqing the Great stared at Qin Wentian. Junior understands. Qin Wentian nodded. You don't understand. Right now, they aren't killing you because you pose no threat to them. They don't truly have the heart to kill you. But the moment they see that you might pose a threat to them, they would spare no expense to kill you. This isn't a lie. The Evergreen Immortal Emperor continued. Qin Wentian's heart trembled. That's right, the Dongxing Heaven Emperor and Zidi didn't personally kill him because they still didn't know that he was the one who killed Dongxing Ting and Zi Yunwu. Similarly, right now, he wasn't a threat to the Dongxing Heaven Emperor and Zidi. In addition to the existences of Emperor Yu and Emperor Qianbian, after weighing the pros and cons, they decided not to kill him personally. But if one day, the Dongxing Heaven Emperor discovered that Qin Wentian was a threat to him, he would no longer have any reservations. The experts of the immortal realms would only weigh the pros and cons. The existence of the rules was also because of the existence of the pros and cons. Once the pros and cons were out of balance, it would be time for the rules to be broken. You guys better make your preparations. In the next few years, I will send you all to a place for cultivation. As the sound of Changqing the Great's voice faded, his silhouette flickered as he directly vanished from his original location. There was no sound at all, it was like he had never appeared before. Send us to a place for cultivation. Qin Wentian mumbled. Upon seeing Qing, turning around, he turned his gaze onto Qing, with some bewilderment in his eyes. However, Qing's beautiful eyes were also filled with bewilderment. Evidently, she didn't know what Changqing the Great was referring to. Changqing the Great didn't return to the Emperor Palace. He came to another palace and saw the silver-haired figure. Have you decided? The voice of the silver-haired figure was ethereal as he asked. Changqing the Great nodded. Since Qing likes it, I have no way to stop her. I can only give her a stroke of good fortune. Let's hope she can grasp it well. That's only natural. He needs an environment to temper himself. It's just that this might be a little risky for you, the silver-haired figure replied. I believe that your judgment won't be wrong, Changqing the Great continued. In addition, I have some understanding of him. There shouldn't be any mistake. If it wasn't for the fact that I've seen through his fate, I wouldn't have told you about this. Since you have already made your decision, you have to be prepared to deal with the Tenlon Heaven Kingdom. These two matters can be resolved at the same time. If you lose. Chongqing the Great stared at the silver-haired figure and smiled. In that case, let the battle begin. After speaking, he turned and directly left. Outside the Emperor Palace, there was still nobility requesting an audience. However, Chongqing the Great refused to see him. 1 month passed. On this day, the entire imperial city of the Evergreen Kingdom was in a strange atmosphere. Outside the imperial palace of the Evergreen Kingdom, countless people were watching. Today was the appointed date. The Tenlon Heaven Kingdom would unite all the major forces and bring people to the imperial palace of the Evergreen Kingdom to pick up the two people. They wanted Princess Qing, and Princess Liuli to marry into the Tenlon Heaven Kingdom. Until today, the Evergreen Kingdom had never acknowledged the so-called ruling of the immortal realm. Outside the imperial palace of the Evergreen Immortal Empire, from afar, a group of figures descended. These were experts from the various major powers, and the group in the lead was incomparably powerful. With every step they took, the heavens and earth seemed to grow heavier. This terrifying might unceasingly extended into the imperial palace of the Evergreen Immortal Empire, causing the guards at the gates of the imperial palace to feel fear in their hearts. The Tenlon Heaven Kingdom actually came to the Evergreen Kingdom Palace, and the Great Emperor still had no way to deal with it. Boom! Another step was taken. In front of the Prince of the Tenlon Heaven Kingdom, Tenlon Jiang, there was a terrifying old man. His cultivation was extremely high. He was most likely in existence in the Emperor realm. Every step he took contained the might of the Great Tao. He was insufferably arrogant, as though he was stepping on the hearts of everyone. This might continue to rush into the imperial palace. Looking at this situation, if the Chongqing the Great refuses to hand over the two people, the Tenlon Heaven Kingdom might really start a war of the celestial kingdoms. The hearts of the people trembled, not knowing how the Evergreen Kingdom would react. Finally, those experts arrived outside the majestic Evergreen Kingdom Palace. The expert in the lead said in a clear voice, "The ambassadors of the Tenlon Heaven Kingdom have come to the Evergreen Kingdom Palace to welcome Princess Qing, and Princess Liuli to Tianlan according to the agreement." Bullshit! A thunderous roar rang out from the imperial palace of the Evergreen Immortal Empire. An old man instantly appeared. This old man was like a primordial beast, his aura towering up into the sky as he coldly spoke, "Who has acknowledged the adjudication of the immortal realms?" Boom, boom, boom. Nobility experts continued to step out, standing in the air, facing off against the experts of the Tenlon Heaven Kingdom. What a laughable immortal adjudication! Where is the ancient emperor? Where is the envoy of the ancient emperor? Another nobility expert coldly spoke. What qualifications does your Tenlon Heaven Kingdom have to initiate the immortal adjudication? Could it be that your Tenlon Heaven Kingdom has already unified the immortal realms? Impudent! The old man from the Tenlon Heaven Kingdom roared. In an instant, many people groaned in pain. Those with lower cultivation bases even coughed out blood. This roar of his resounded through the heavens and earth, shaking the souls of everyone present. That old man glanced ahead as he coldly spoke, "As a peak power of the eastern regions, the Evergreen Kingdom has no choice but to break the agreement. My Tenlon Heaven Kingdom has no choice but to initiate the immortal adjudication." Who would have thought that even at this moment, the Evergreen Kingdom is still so shameless, refusing to acknowledge the agreement? This is simply a disgrace to the immortal realms. That's right. Since the agreement has the ancient imprint of the Evergreen Kingdom, the Evergreen Kingdom will naturally abide by it. An expert from the Supreme Sword School spoke. What a joke. It's just a useless agreement. You want to use it to judge the matters of my empire? In addition, what does this matter have to do with the Supreme Sword School? The rage of the nobility experts from the Evergreen Kingdom towered up into the sky. Their auras coalesced into a terrifying tempest, clashing against the auras of the experts from the other side, transforming into a formless screen of light that expanded unceasingly, enveloping the entire region. I'm only asking if the Evergreen Kingdom will abide by the agreement. Will you hand over the princess or not? That immortal emperor spoke again, his words causing the nobility experts from the Evergreen Kingdom to be even more enraged. Hand over the princess? Did the Tenlon Heaven Kingdom treat the two princesses of the Evergreen Kingdom as sinners? Let alone the princesses who were lofty, the daughters of the Changqing the Great and the White Emperor, even the maidens from the nobility manor wouldn't be able to endure such humiliation. Not handing over. A voice drifted over from within the royal palace. The eyes of the nobility experts from the Evergreen Kingdom flashed as they turned their heads to the royal palace. After that, they saw a figure suddenly appearing in the air, exuding a lofty aura, akin to a divinity. We pay our respects to the Evergreen Great Emperor. The nobility experts from the Evergreen Kingdom bowed at the same time. The might of the Changqing the Great bore down, enveloping the entire space. The diplomatic group from the Sky Mist Kingdom pays our respects to the Changqing the Great. The experts from the Tenlon Heaven Kingdom all bowed, appearing extremely polite. However, there wasn't much reverence in their eyes. Changqing the Great, the agreement between our two empires in the past has already been decided by the immortal realms. I hope that your majesty can abide by it and allow our Sky Mist Kingdom to welcome the two princesses. That immortal emperor slowly spoke, showing no fear even in front of the Changqing the Great. The Changqing the Great stood in the air, staring at him. He didn't say anything, but his gaze was incomparably sharp, as though it could pierce through the other party. After a long time, he spoke, "Immortal realms? Since you all believe in the immortal realms, fine then. I, Changqing, hereby announce that I disagree with the immortal realms and will initiate an adjudication battle." His voice rang out in all directions, causing the hearts of countless people to tremble. The Changqing the Great was initiating an adjudication battle. The eyes of the experts from the Tenlon Heaven Kingdom flashed. They stared at the Changqing the Great. "Since this is the case, which cultivation base does your majesty intend to use for the adjudication battle? Immortal Foundation or Immortal King?" His eyes gleamed with sharpness. The adjudication battle was a war of large-scale slaughter. All of them had joined forces, and if the Evergreen Immortal Emperor started the adjudication battle, the number of casualties wouldn't be as simple as just one or two people. The adjudication battle was a battle of life and death. The nobility experts from the Evergreen Kingdom felt their hearts trembling. Seems like His Majesty had long planned to initiate an adjudication battle. Naturally, he had no other choice. His Evergreen Kingdom was located in the eastern regions of the Immortal Realms. It was naturally impossible for them to hand over the two princesses. If they did so, the reputation of the Evergreen Kingdom would be swept to the bottom and they would become a joke in the Immortal Realms. They would rather fight than to submit. If they wanted to fight, let's start with the adjudication battle. Immortal Foundation. The Changqing the Great spoke. This was also within the expectations of everyone. Immortal kings were the core strength of a power. Even to an immortal empire, they were extremely important. They couldn't afford to lose them in a large-scale adjudication battle. The adjudication battle requires at least 81 participants. How many participants does the Changqing the Great have in mind for each level? That expert from the Tenlon Heaven Kingdom continued asking. Since there are no ancient emperors in this era, wouldn't the adjudication battle be child's play? Since the Tenlon Heaven Kingdom initiated the adjudication battle, I shall let the Immortal Realms witness the arrival of an ancient emperor. The Changqing the Great slowly spoke. He took a step up into the air and inclined his head, staring at the boundless sky. At this instant, the boundlessly vast land transformed into a boundless starry sky. Boundless astral energy gushed forth from the body of the Changqing the Great, resembling the great Tao of heaven and earth. What does the Changqing the Great want to do? The eyes of everyone flashed, feeling somewhat puzzled. The arrival of an ancient emperor? The eyes of the experts from the Tenlon Heaven Kingdom flashed. In the air, the astral energy transformed into the great Tao of heaven and earth, opening up an ancient pathway through the starry sky. At the end of the starry sky ancient path, a lofty palace was vaguely visible. Following this, its projection descended from the sky. Tiandao Sacred Academy, he is summoning the Tiandao Sacred Academy. The hearts of the experts from the Tenlon Heaven Kingdom trembled. The people around him had looks of bewilderment on their faces. Chapter 11:15. The Changqing the Great stood high up in the air, radiating a brilliant light. At this instant, everyone in the vast royal city inclined their heads and stared at the sky, feeling incomparably shocked. The sky was covered by the starry skies, the entire city was enveloped by the starry skies. As the boundless astral light cascaded downwards, the starry skies seemed to want to devour the entire city, completely enveloping it. Qin Wentian inclined his head and stared at the sky, his heart trembling intensely. Was this the strength of the Changqing the Great? The Changqing the Great, his strength could envelop an entire city. This was a royal city of an immortal empire, it was unknown how many times larger compared to the particle world he was from back then. But right now, it was completely enveloped by the starry skies. The sun and moon dimmed, Qin Wentian felt as though he wasn't standing in the city, but under the starry skies instead. Not only him, at this moment, everyone else had the same feeling. They were currently in the middle of the starry skies, staring at the Changqing the Great in a daze. That indomitable and supreme existence, his strength caused everyone to feel a sense of awe. At the end of the boundless starry skies, there seemed to be a palace standing there. Within it, light cascaded downwards, flowing towards the entire city, and even into the bodies of everyone here. Has he gone mad? The immortal emperor expert from the Tenlon Heaven Kingdom stared at the Changqing the Great as he spoke. His eyes were filled with shock. As an immortal emperor expert, only he knew some of the secrets of the Tiandao Sacred Academy. The Changqing the Great summoned the Tiandao Sacred Academy. If the Tiandao Sacred Academy didn't accept him, he would have to pay an extremely painful price. Could it be that the Changqing the Great was confident that the Tiandao Sacred Academy would appear in the immortal realms of this generation? One must know that in the legends, the ancient Tiandao Sacred Academy would only appear during the era of ancient emperors. Once the Tiandao Sacred Academy appeared in the immortal realms, it meant that in the future, an era of ancient emperors would appear, an era where the immortal realms would be unified. Previously, the Changqing the Great said that he wanted the immortal realms to witness the era of an ancient emperor. So it turned out that he wanted to summon the Tiandao Sacred Academy. In the vast royal capital, everyone felt their hearts trembling. The light in the air flowed around the bodies of everyone in the royal palace. After a long time, a beam of intense light cascaded downwards. The palace in the air was actually moving towards the direction of the immortal realms. An intense beam of light shot towards the horizons. After that, this stretch of starry space gradually dissipated as the sunlight cascaded down on everyone. It felt like they had just experienced a dream. They stared at the disappearing palace as an illusion appeared in their minds. That palace was really going to descend into the immortal realms. The Sacred Academy has descended. The era of the ancient emperors has begun. The Changqing the Great stood in the air as he spoke. His solemn voice thundered through the royal capital, causing the hearts of countless people to tremble. Was the era of the ancient emperors about to begin? In this era, would a character on the level of an ancient emperor appear? Would this be a grand era? Only to see that in the air, the Changqing the Great slowly descended. His gaze swept over the experts of the Tenlon Heaven Kingdom as he spoke. Since you guys want to initiate the adjudication, this emperor shall add some weight to it. The era of ancient emperors is about to arrive, only then would the adjudication be more powerful. So Senior Changqing the Great was actually a disciple of the Sacred Academy during the ancient era. To think that you are actually able to summon the Tiandao Sacred Academy. The immortal emperor of the Tenlon Heaven Kingdom stared at the Changqing the Great as he spoke. Speaking of which, this emperor can be considered the last batch of disciples of the Sacred Academy. When I was young, the ancient emperors gradually disappeared from the immortal realms. Now, the golden era is about to be reborn. The Changqing the Great slowly spoke. Since you guys initiated the adjudication, and now that the Sacred Academy has descended, let's wait for the location of the Sacred Academy to appear in. As for the adjudication battle, let's see which side has more disciples from the Sacred Academy. How about it? Since the Sacred Academy has descended, let's wait a little longer. As for the adjudication battle, I will discuss it after we return. I will reply to your majesty after that. That immortal emperor spoke. After that, he actually brought his people and departed. Clearly, because the Chongqing the Great summoned the Sacred Academy, all of them were shocked. This was a major matter, they had to report this to the immortal empire immediately. Not only for the Tenlon Heaven Kingdom, the Supreme Sword School, the Celestial Palace and the other major powers were all shocked. They could feel that the immortal realms were about to open the curtains of a new era. Today, the actions of the Chongqing the Great in the air seemed to be the start of a new era. Even the matter of suppressing the Evergreen Kingdom might have to be slowed down a little. The envoys from the Tenlon Heaven Kingdom retreated from the Evergreen Kingdom's royal palace just like that. This made everyone faintly feel that because of the actions of the Chongqing the Great earlier, there might be a matter even more important than the war between the two empires. As for what exactly would happen, the vast majority of people had no idea. Qin Wentian and Qing'er stood in the royal palace. They were also at a loss, they didn't know what was happening. However, they could faintly sense that this had something to do with the conversation the Chongqing the Great had with him a month ago. The Chongqing Great wanted to send him and Qing'er away to cultivate. Everyone, go back and prepare to select the most outstanding geniuses of our empire, regardless of immortal foundation or immortal king. The Chongqing the Great spoke, his words causing the eyes of everyone to flash. Even for those at the nobility level, there were many who didn't understand. But even so, they still nodded their heads. They could all sense an unusual aura. Qin Wentian also returned to Princess Changping's residence. Several days later, the immortal king who came with him informed Qin Wentian that the Emperor Lord had summoned him and wanted him to return to the immortal Qianbian Gate immediately. Qin Wentian could sense that this might have something to do with the ancient palace in the starry space. Hence, he bid farewell to Qing'er and prepared to make a trip back first. Passing through the teleportation array of the Evergreen Kingdom, Qin Wentian and his group returned to the Cloud Prefecture. Cloud Prefecture City, Immortal Qianbian Gate. Before Qin Wentian returned to his residence, he was summoned by the Emperor Lord. After arriving at the Emperor Lord's palace, Qin Wentian met with the Emperor Lord. I heard that you have shone brilliantly in the Evergreen Kingdom. In fact, even the nobility of the Evergreen Kingdom didn't object to your relationship with Princess Qing'er anymore. The Emperor Lord smiled as he stared at Qin Wentian. Emperor Lord must be joking. Qin Wentian shook his head and smiled. Emperor Lord, did you summon me here because of the ancient palace that Chongqing the Great summoned? That's the Sacred Academy of the ancient era. It has been many years since it appeared. The Emperor Lord stared at Qin Wentian. Every time the Tiandao Sacred Academy appears, it symbolizes the era of ancient emperors. Since the Chongqing the Great could summon the Tiandao Sacred Academy, it means that he had once entered it for cultivation. Also, the Chongqing the Great seems to believe that in the current immortal realms, an ancient emperor would appear. If not, the Tiandao Sacred Academy wouldn't have appeared. What sort of place is the Tiandao Sacred Academy? Qin Wentian felt some shock in his heart. The appearance of the Tiandao Sacred Academy actually represented the era of ancient emperors. I've never entered it before, so I have no idea as well. The Emperor Lord Qianbian smiled. However, it's rumored to be a holy land for cultivation. Only those with extremely high potential would be able to enter. The threshold is even higher compared to the city of ancient emperors. You and those people around you can all go there to roam the world. Qin Wentian nodded. Also, for this adjudication, if you wish to help the Evergreen Kingdom, just do so. Although the Tenlon Heaven Kingdom initiated the adjudication, I'm afraid that they would really start a war. The Emperor Lord Qianbian laughed. Many thanks, Emperor Lord. Qin Wentian bowed. Go on, Bai Wuya is looking for you. The Emperor Lord Qianbian spoke. Qin Wentian's eyes flashed. After that, he bid farewell and headed to Bai Wuya's palace. Seems like the matter of the Tiandao Sacred Academy stirred the hearts of too many people. Both the Emperor Lord Qianbian and Senior Brother Bai wanted to summon him. Senior Brother. After entering Bai Wuya's courtyard, Qin Wentian transmitted his voiceover. You're back. Bai Wuya had a gentle smile on his face when he saw Qin Wentian. Our harvest this time around isn't small. Even the Tiandao Sacred Academy appeared. Qin Wentian bitterly smiled as he shook his head. He also didn't know that the Changqing the Great was able to summon the Tiandao Sacred Academy. Wentian, the Tiandao Sacred Academy has already appeared in the central regions of the Immortal Realms. The news is spreading rapidly and very soon, the entire Immortal Realms would know of the news of the Tiandao Sacred Academy. This time around, many disciples of our Heavenly Talisman Realm would be heading there. You naturally have to go as well. However, remember your identity as a disciple of our Heavenly Talisman Realm. Bai Wuya spoke. Qin Wentian nodded. Would the appearance of the Tiandao Sacred Academy really cause a commotion in the Immortal Realms? Go back and prepare well. Don't miss out on this opportunity. Bai Wuya instructed. Qin Wentian nodded and departed. Staring at the back view of Qin Wentian, the white-robed immortal king turned his gaze up into the air. In the era of ancient emperors, the Changqing the Great summoned the Tiandao Sacred Academy. Was it because of junior apprentice brother Wentian? Bai Wuya silently mused. This time around, he would head there as well. There was no one in the Immortal Realms who didn't want to witness the Sacred Academy of the ancient era. This time around, the entire Immortal Realms would surely be shaken. Just like what Bai Wuya had thought, in the eastern regions, in the Tenlan Heaven Kingdom, Tenlan Jiang and the others returned, causing a commotion in the Imperial Palace. They temporarily put aside the matter of the Evergreen Kingdom and focused all their attention on the matter of the Tiandao Sacred Academy. The Supreme Sword School, the Celestial Palace, the Taihua Immortal Dynasty and the other major powers all hurriedly sent their disciples back, making preparations for the Sacred Academy of the ancient era. In the eastern regions, there was a commotion. In a certain location in the eastern Sage 13 prefectures, in a beautiful immortal palace, a young man came before a beautiful middle-aged woman and asked, Master summon me? Taishu, the Tiandao Sacred Academy has appeared. To you, this is an opportunity. Prepare to head there. The woman smiled. This woman was none other than the myriad incarnations immortal king. Not only for the eastern regions, many peak powers in the southern, western, northern and central regions also received this news. In the Namhuang clan, the southern Phoenix matriarch sent out a holy protector maiden to gather all the holy maidens of the Namhuang clan, preparing to head to the Tiandao Sacred Academy. In the Jiang clan, a group of the most outstanding young men stood together. Among them was Jiang Ziyu. In front of them, an old man solemnly spoke, the Sacred Academy has appeared. The era that belongs to all of you is about to arrive. In fact, even the myriad devil islands received the news. Experts from the various devil paths gathered in the myriad devil sovereign's sect. The myriad devil sovereign commanded the disciples of his sect to prepare to head to the central regions of the immortal realms, where the heavenly Tao Sacred Academy was located. This time around, the entire immortal realms were truly shaken. Chapter 11:16. In the boundlessly vast central regions of the Azure Mystic Immortal Realms, there were countless cities and major powers. Because this was the central region, it was the most flourishing region in the entire Immortal Realms. In the central regions of the Immortal Realms, there was a city named Nine Tripod City. The Nine Tripod City was located at the very core of the central regions. To the west, there was a vast and boundless western sea. Occasionally, there would be flood dragons roaming about. In fact, it was rumored that there were even demonic dragons living in the Western Sea. Not only so, the other three directions of the Nine Tripod City were governed by different powers. This Nine Tripod City was considered a city of freedom, incomparably flourishing and boundlessly vast. Countless experts would come and go here every day. The name Nine Tripod City came from the 9 cauldrons. In the 9 directions of the city, there were 9 cauldrons guarding it. It was rumored that the 9 cauldrons were divine cauldrons that could suppress the flow of fate in this city, allowing it to flourish for countless years without declining. And now, something happened that verified the rumors. Some time ago, a beam of resplendent astral light descended from the sky, descending upon the immortal realms. After that, the beam of astral light landed on the 9-tripod city of the immortal realms. After that, the entire 9-tripod city was in an uproar. Experts from the various powers gathered here. Occasionally, there would be powerful auras enveloping the entire 9-tripod city. After that, the entire central regions of the immortal realms were shaken. The news of the ancient Tiandao Sacred Academy appearing in the 9-tripod city circulated through the entire central regions. For a period of time, wind and clouds gathered. Very swiftly, the originally flourishing 9-tripod city became a cauldron of voices. There were silhouettes of people everywhere. This entire city was suddenly filled with splendor. In addition, the people who came to the 9-tripod city were all immortal kings and emperors. Each of them exuded an extraordinary aura, and there were no mediocre characters here. For those mediocre characters, even if they came, they could only be spectators. After that, the major powers from the eastern regions, western regions, southern regions, and northern regions all arrived at the 9-tripod city that appeared out of thin air. They traversed through different regions and were all elites of their respective powers. This time around, they came for the sake of the Sacred Academy. People from the Namhuang clan. The Southern Phoenix matriarch was known as a beauty in the entire southern regions. Truly, her descendants are as common as the clouds. At this moment, many people in the 9-tripod city stared at the figures in the air. Among them, there were many females and many of them were exceptionally beautiful. These were none other than members of the Namhuang clan of the southern regions. The Namhuang clan is one of the 3 ancient clans in the south. They are incomparably powerful and have a deep foundation. If I could marry a saintess of the Namhuang clan, it would be a wonderful thing in the world, someone fantasized. These southern powers have come at the right time. Over there are the people from the ancient Jiang clan. The mysterious ancient Jiang clan has sent quite a few people this time. Not far away from the Namhuang clan, a group of experts with extraordinary auras appeared. These were none other than the disciples of the Jiang clan of the southern regions. The Ying clan's lineup is the largest. Someone laughed, staring in another direction. Although they were very far away, they could still see the imposing auras of the Ying clan. They rode on dragon carriages, their might shaking the 8 directions. The person in the lead was clad in a dragon robe, exuding an unexcelled aura. The experts from the various powers continued on their way. In the central region of the 9-tripod city, there was a sacred academy located there. This sacred academy was shrouded in boundless astral light and was faintly discernible. It seemed to be an illusory existence, yet one could see it clearly. This ancient sacred academy didn't seem too large, merely spanning 1,000 miles. However, someone spoke in a low voice. It's rumored that the ancient sacred academy is a world of Sumeru. It doesn't seem big, but once you enter, you would be in a world of its own. Can we enter directly? Someone asked. Even immortal emperors wouldn't be able to enter, let alone you. This is the Tiandao Sacred Academy, it naturally has its own rules. How can you enter so casually? A voice replied. Evidently, now that the Tiandao Sacred Academy has appeared in the immortal realms, this caused the rumors regarding the ancient Tiandao Sacred Academy to circulate. More and more people heard about it. After several days, the experts from the eastern regions arrived one after another. The Tenlon Heaven Kingdom, the Taihua Immortal Dynasty, the Celestial Palace rode on greater demons, the Dongshengshan Gate's prestige was extraordinary, and the Beast God sect rode on many powerful ancient demonic beasts. For a period of time, not only did experts from the various powers arrive, there were also many greater demons appearing as well, causing a commotion. Today, the experts from the Immortal Qianbian Gate also arrived. Bai Wuya personally led the experts here. There were thousands of them and Qin Wentian was among them. Which power are these people from? Someone in the city asked, clearly not familiar with the Immortal Champion Gate. No idea. They are the newest rising power in the eastern regions, the people from the Immortal Champion Gate led by the Emperor Champion. They have occupied 6 of the 13 prefectures of the Dongshengshan Gate and are currently fighting against the Dongshengshan Gate. A knowledgeable person spoke. The distance between the eastern regions and the central regions was extremely far. The central regions were extremely prosperous and there were already many interesting things happening there. Hence, there weren't many people who would pay attention to the movements of the major powers in the eastern regions. Only those peak powers would pay attention to them. For ordinary characters, what they cared about the most was their own cultivation. There are so many experts. The immortal realms are filled with geniuses. Our strength is so pitifully weak. Jun Mengchen spoke in a low voice. After his closed-door seclusion, he had also stepped into the second level of Immortal Foundation. His talent was outstanding, but even so, a second-level Immortal Foundation expert could be considered a hegemon in a remote little city. But in the perspective of the entire Immortal Realms, a second-level Immortal Foundation expert was merely the beginning of the path. We haven't arrived yet. If not, there would be even more experts. Qin Wentian smiled. Bai Wuya's immortal sense spread out as he led the experts from the Immortal Champion Gate forward. Finally, they arrived at the Sacred Academy. Over here, experts from the various peak powers were already gathered. The people from the Namhuang clan have arrived as well. Jun Mengchen pointed ahead as he spoke. Qin Wentian glanced over, the holy maidens of the Namhuang clan had arrived. Qin Wentian was acquainted with the person in the lead, it was none other than the Tao protector of the Southern Phoenix matriarch, Nanfeng Jinghong. Let's go and greet them. Bai Wuya spoke to Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian nodded and stepped out. Among the Namhuang clan, Namhuang Yunxi and Nanfeng Shinga also walked out. Nanfeng Shinga was still as beautiful as ever. She smiled, Sir Qin has come as well. Miss Shinga, long time no see. Qin Wentian smiled and nodded. He then turned to Namhuang Yunxi only to hear Namhuang Yunxi speaking, I heard that you caused quite a commotion in the Evergreen Kingdom. You already know about it? Qin Wentian laughed. The Tenlon Heaven Kingdom initiated the adjudication, wanting to marry Qing heir. That's too much. Namhuang Yunxi spoke. I thought you would come together with Princess Qing heir. Why do I feel the smell of jealousy? Jun Mengchen, who was at the side, mumbled, causing Qin Wentian to glare fiercely at him. Upon seeing the awkwardness in Namhuang Yunxi's eyes, Qin Wentian spoke, this fellow just loves to spout nonsense. I'm used to it. Namhuang Yunxi glanced at Jun Mengchen. Her words caused Jun Mengchen's eyes to flicker. Namhuang Yunxi, when did I get used to spouting nonsense? I will go over first. Namhuang Yunxi glanced at the two of them. After that, she and Nanfeng Shinga returned to the Namhuang clan's camp. Many people turned their gazes onto them. Upon seeing Nanfeng Jinghong looking over, Qin Wentian bowed to her. Nanfeng Jinghong also nodded her head lightly, causing the hearts of the Namhuang clan to tremble. At this moment, Qin Wentian felt a cold aura. He turned his eyes over and saw a group of experts. These were the experts of the Ying clan. Yingtang was also among them. His eyes were incomparably cold, glaring at Qin Wentian as his killing intent intensified. The humiliation he suffered at the God Hand Mountain Manor, Yingtang would never forget it. However, Qin Wentian only casually glanced at him before shifting his gaze away, returning to the Immortal Champion Gate. He couldn't be bothered with him. In his heart, Yingtang couldn't even be considered an opponent. His attitude of disdain caused Yingtang's countenance to turn even more malevolent. Yingtang, is he the one who humiliated you? Someone beside Yingtang asked. Yes, I will definitely kill him. Yingtang coldly replied. I will remember him. The person beside Yingtang spoke. We don't know when the Tiandao Sacred Academy will open. Let's just wait for news in the vicinity. Bai Wuya spoke. At their level, it didn't matter even if they didn't rest. This area was very vast, they could just casually sit on the ground and cultivate. More and more experts arrived. The major powers of the central regions, the major powers of the western regions, as well as the major powers of the northern regions, all arrived. They finally arrived at the Evergreen Kingdom. Qing naturally came along as well. Other than these peak-tier sects and immortal kingdoms, there were also many rogue immortal emperors who brought their juniors to the Nine-Tripod City. Ordinary people didn't dare to casually offend these people. You wouldn't even know which sect the person walking on the streets belonged to. Today, in the Nine-Tripod City, a terrifying devil might suddenly gushed forth, exuding a heaven-shaking aura. In the region of the Sacred Academy, the experts from the various powers inclined their heads only to see a black mass of experts flying through the air. The devil might radiating from them was extremely terrifying, and they were divided into different groups. Each group represented a different power, and with so many groups of people gathered together, the entire space was enveloped by the devil might. The various devil sects of the myriad devil islands fought intensely. Seems like for the sake of coming here, all of them temporarily joined forces. People from the myriad devil islands actually dare to come to our Nine-Tripod City? An old man from one of the groups spoke. His aura was terrifying as he stared at the sky. What a joke! Isn't our myriad devil islands a major power of the immortal realms? A black-robed expert calmly spoke. This time around, our myriad devil islands didn't send any devil emperors here. Since the Sacred Academy is here in the immortal realms, our myriad devil islands also came here for the sake of the Sacred Academy. We don't wish to cause trouble, so I hope that everyone will behave themselves. You dare to be so arrogant even after coming to the central regions? Another person coldly spoke. The myriad devil sovereign has sent out many devil emperors to infiltrate the various regions of the immortal realms. If you all want to start a war against us, just wait for the devil emperors to slaughter their way into your clans or sections. The black-robed expert waved his hand as he domineeringly spoke, his words causing everyone to snort coldly.